Hello, everyone.
Welcome to the U Sports community.
A community striving to enhance youth sports.
I'm Taylor Medic.
I'm Sean Connaughton.
And I'm Matt Ma.
Thank you for joining us today. The U Sports community is proudly presented by Nuance Hockey and Ma Golf.
Nuance Hockey provides detail-driven on- and off-ice development in the Edmonton area. For more information, please visit our website at nuance.hockey and follow us on social media.
Ma Golf provides elite coaching for golfers of all skill levels at the Millwoods Golf Club in Edmonton. Our apparel is provided by Bird & Barley, prairie-inspired, golf-focused. To receive 15% off your next order, please visit birdandbarley.com and use our promo code YSC15.
This episode is produced by Nick Hussey of Hussey Multimedia, and hydration is provided by Earthwater. We are very excited to have Travis Bouchard joining the community for today's podcast episode.
Travis is the program director of Vimy Esports, Vimy Ridge Academy's newest program that began in 2022. Travis has always had a passion for gaming and is excited to bring that enthusiasm to competitive esports student athletes. He's a certified esports coach, completing a certification through the network of academic and scholastic esports federations.
Travis is one of two Alberta representatives on the EDU National Council for Esport Canada and the vice chair of the Alberta Esports Association Academic Subcommittee, helping to shape the landscape of scholastic esports in Alberta and across Canada.
Travis has coached many sports, including hockey, baseball, soccer, and disc golf, and has served as a board member for multiple local sports associations. His passion is taking all of his experience in traditional sports and integrating the best aspects of each sport into the development of his esports student athletes.
When he's not at work, Travis is an avid disc golfer and enjoys reading, video games, and spending time with his family.
I have the privilege of working daily with Travis in our AAD office at Vimy Ridge Academy. He has a team-first mindset, tech skills, creativity, willingness to brainstorm new ideas, and the ability to provide constructive feedback. Boosh, we really appreciate you taking the time to be here, and welcome to the U Sports community.
Thanks.
How are you doing today?
Doing well. It's a little uncomfortable having people talk about me, but yeah, I appreciate you guys having me.
Well, lots to talk about. This is just an exciting episode for us, but let's get kind of back to the roots and maybe share some earliest memory of sports and playing those traditional sports as a kid.
Yeah, I don't know. As far as the timeline for most kids now, I feel like I was a little bit late to the game. At the time, it wasn't too late, but I remember playing what was called mosquito baseball at that time. So That was, I think that's U11. And specifically the memory, if I think about it, is at Brentwood School, one of those dirt diamonds that they don't even cut out the baselines. It's just we've run the baselines into the ground.
Yeah.
And there's humps everywhere. And if anybody hits a ball and it's rolling towards you, it's the scariest thing of all time. That's my earliest memory, and being like, my parents, I was the first of, I have four brothers, three brothers, and I was the youngest, but I was the first one to play sports. So, we weren't always in a position where we could afford for everyone to play sports. So I was the first one too. And I remember playing that and being like, oh, I think I'm actually into sports, because at first you don't know. It's just like something that your friends might want to do and you might want to try it out. And I did that and I was like, oh, I think I kind of like this. So baseball was definitely the first love when it comes to sports. But then I started playing hockey and, dabbled in basketball and indoor soccer and all those sorts of things. But the first thing I remember is definitely the mosquito baseball. I legitimately remember the color of the jerseys and the pinstripe pants and all that kind of stuff. Because the first time someone gives you a uniform, that's like a massive thing, right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I remember that and how it was kind of like a springboard into like, oh, I want to keep doing this, right? So
Now, was the baseball part of the school, or was it a club team outside of the school?
It was a club team, just Sherwood Park minor baseball, which, eventually, like my kids, both of them actually did play at one point, but my one son continues to play, and I was actually on the board for Sherwood Park minor baseball at one point, so it's just kind of an interesting, played back in the day, same association, and then eventually you're on the board for it. It's like kind of a cool full circle moment.
Absolutely. Have they cleaned up some of the fields since your time? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's some great fields there. I wish, by the time I got to midget AAA, you're playing at the one by Facey there, Strathcona Athletic Park, and it's a really, really nice diamond. But even now, they have the other two beautiful diamonds at Centennial Park, and they just keep getting better and better. They have an indoor facility now and everything. So, yeah, it's kind of cool to. I started in 9-10 years old, and then to see where baseball has come, even in Sherwood Park, has been great to see.
So born and raised Sherwood Park, Alberta.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, technically born in Edmonton, and spent the first few years there. But when I think I was 3 or 4, we moved to Sherwood Park. So definitely, everyone in my family was born. Like my wife, myself, and my 2 sons were all born in Royal Alex. So it's kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long did you stick with baseball for? How long was it a sport that you wanted to continue to focus on?
All the way through midget AAA. So from whatever it was, 9 years old, all the way through 18.
Okay.
Yeah. After a couple of years of playing house league, someone was like, "Hey, there's rep tryouts or whatever," right? So
Right.
decided to go to that. And I remember, this is going to sound like a brag, but I remember the first tryout was just for whatever it was, Pee Wee at the time. And it was at just another little field, but one of those ones where it's all grass field and it just has like a little backstop. I remember they were like doing stations or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, you guys want to do? We're going to rotate you into pitching." And so I went to go do that, and the coach at the time, obviously no gear, might have had a dart in his mouth, and he probably didn't, but he was just behind the backstop and, gives you a target and you throw it. And I remember him just being like, "Hey, could you do that like 20 or 30 more times?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Good, you made the team." So it was like one of those things back in the day when there wasn't as much fanfare. There wasn't as much, there's 100 kids trying out. It's just like, "Oh, you look like you can play, so now it's time to play," right?
Totally. And so what position were you pitching?
As
quite
pitcher,
a bit?
yeah. So
Nice.
pitcher, and then the way baseball is when you're not pitching, you're pitchers go to third base because they can make that throw, or pitchers go to left field, right field because they can throw it in, right?
Right.
So whenever it was my turn in rotation, especially when you get to the higher levels, I'm pitching obviously, but then they just throw you out to other positions.
Nice. Well, I know Maddie played some ball growing up, and what were your positions again?
Catcher. I played mainly catcher first and pitching, and third, I guess.
Gotcha.
Like a catch.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can catch, they know you can make the
It
throw
was
to
like
second,
right
so they
there.
know you can make the throw from
But
third.
then I
to
was
first.
always, so I could always make the throw second, but then also I could catch, and then first base was an easy one as well. Because especially when you're like under 12, 13, sometimes it's a little dicey at first base. Sometimes. Like improv, right? You've seen it enough over the years. It gets a little dicey up there. Yeah.
Dicey how? Like,
because not everyone's throwing the ball great, so you get a lot of stuff in the ground or in the dirt, so you got to pick it out. So, or sometimes you just got to get in front of it and just, same as a catcher, like you just got to eat it.
Yeah,
and that's a tough one to.
It's an interesting sport. I find that there's a lot of sports where it looks like the sport from a very early age, and like things can be adapted, like hockey with the blue pucks and the small rink and everything like that. Baseball is one of those ones where it's just like, it's not baseball for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden you're just like, okay, so now that person can throw, and they can actually throw strikes, and then people are hitting off of them, and it actually becomes the sport. It's an interesting what can they do to adjust baseball so that when 6 and 7 year olds play, it actually resembles the game,
right?
Or if not, then is it all just skills the whole time, right? You know what I mean?
So you wouldn't include t-ball in that? Because that's funny, because I only played maybe a summer or two, and I was so young that my only memories of baseball, like formal baseball, was t-ball. There was no pitching. You just put it on the tee and whack it. And obviously the positioning and everything after it was not great either. I still love throwing the ball around. We'd go out in the field and pitch to ourselves, but that was my only experience with actually like having a jersey and playing formal baseball. But I loved it. But I see what you mean, how that jump compared to some other sports is just it's a little bit bigger, because it's kind of like it's not there, and then all of a sudden it's there, right?
Yeah, like even in t-ball, so that helps the kid, and obviously that's an adaptation that is great, because kids can't hit it out of the air, or it takes them a longer time to figure that out. But even when it gets put in play, and it's awesome, we've all seen the TikToks and the YouTube videos of kids, just everyone runs for the ball, and then the kid who actually hit the ball goes and picks it up, and all that kind of stuff, and it makes for great television. But even when it's hit, it's like they can't really make a play kind of thing, right? So there's this thing that they do called blast ball, where it's for the really, really young guys, so it'd be like your initiation kind of thing. And literally they just hit the ball, and then they run to a base that's just whatever you're supposed to measure the distance, and when you step on the base it honks. It's the greatest thing in the entire world. That's
smart.
So you're just really not getting into actual baseball games until you're getting to like,
Lot older.
U11 for like house league stuff. There's probably U11 rep teams that are just unreal, right? But my oldest Lincoln is going into U13 this year, so I'm interested to see what that next jump is like for them.
Yeah.
'Cause even pitching is tough. Like even when we watch the Little League World Series, like the strike zone's fairly large, and that's like the best ones in the world, best players in the world, and even then they still need a little extra help. It seems like.
Is their strike zone bigger than a MLB strike zone? Like, do they?
I think it's
give
just it's
them a
called
bigger?
that way.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if it's necessarily on purpose, but because at a certain point, sometimes you're just not throwing strikes.
Right.
I think technically it's supposed to be like, knees to belly button or whatever, but it's like, do umpires really change it if a kid, especially at U11, U13, one kid's 5 foot nothing and one kid's 6 feet tall? Like, are they really changing the strike zone, or do they just know this is my square that I go for kind of thing? I don't know.
And so back when you were playing as a young boy baseball, you mentioned there wasn't really that indoor training option either, where now, obviously you see the baseball kids at Vimy and they're going to the turf center and they're able to use different spaces to still work on their skills. You stuck with baseball for quite a while. Did any of that start to become normal even, when you were kind of in your U18 high school years, or was that still something that hadn't started in the baseball training atmosphere?
I definitely have vague memories of some indoor things. So like being able to hit in like oh no, that might have been actually men's league. But when I was a little bit older, when I got into the, midget AAA and things like that, we did try to find some indoor time.
Yeah.
But I seriously remember playing in like the Bev Facey gym and like using real baseballs in the gym. And that's, it's great for catch and all that sort of thing, but we couldn't really hit in there. There just wasn't spaces for it.
Right.
And so now it's amazing to see that there's many more facilities. Like you said, the Turf Center, I believe Sherwood Park Baseball also has their own indoor facility. There's just a lot more field houses kind of popping up where you can do things. Even then, I've been to a bunch of them. It's like, can you work on pop flies in there? Well, no, you can't work on pop flies. But, they have some areas where you can hit in a cage. You can take ground balls off of turf and things like that. There's, they have those artificial mounds that they can throw off, so they can kind of simulate, especially in Canada. Obviously our training season, if we don't have any indoor, is so short.
Right.
So it's good to see more things are popping up.
So when you were younger, then obviously you had a significant off season from baseball, which was primarily the winter months. How did you start to kind of fill your time during those months?
I think after I played baseball, I think pretty quickly, if not that same year, I said to my parents, I'm like, okay, it's maybe time to do a little bit of hockey.
Yeah.
I'd like to try that out. No one in my family had played hockey before. Parents were very supportive. You'd think that maybe at some point parents are like, ooh, it's kind of fun to watch my kid play sports or whatever, right? So they were quite open to it. So I started playing hockey. That always ended up being a little bit more of I wasn't really quite at the same level. I think not starting skating until I was much older, it being a completely different form of locomotion and very integral to the game. I think that was never something I never got very strong at, but I always just enjoyed hockey. At that time, we actually hit when we were in Pee Wee and things like that. And I maybe enjoyed that part of the game a little bit as a bigger guy at the time. So it was more of a fun kind of a social sport for me. Never really advanced to any sort of high levels in it, but still loved playing the game for sure. And it's one of those things where you play men's league when you're a little bit older, and it's great that I got the skills to be able to skate and at least be competent on the ice, and so that I could do some coaching later on in life and play some men's league hockey and all that sort of thing.
It's also a great way to stay active in the winter months too.
Absolutely, for sure. It's I think there's a progression that happens with men's league hockey when you're a little bit younger. Sometimes, it's a great way to stay in touch with your friends. I played in a league when I was in bands and things like that when I was younger. And I played in a league with a lot of musicians around town and stuff like that. Cool. So that was kind of a cool thing that mixed in. And the fact that I could be competent on the ice meant that I could do that. So that was another kind of a fun thing about learning that. And it's one of those skills you feel like in Canada, it's just great for you to just know how to skate. It's just hockey was never got to the point where I was like, I really want to be great at this.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a good way to network as you get older.
Absolutely.
Because you never know, like, because the dressing rooms are so diverse.
Mhm.
Like, you could have, people in tech or people in education. Like, you just have such a vast variety of people, and it's really a neat way to just meet so many different people from different walks of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you didn't skate at all prior to about 10 years old, or had you dabbled in it a little bit?
I'm trying to think. I do remember in elementary, I went to West Hosford School in Sherwood Park.
Yeah.
And so that is right beside Glen Allen Recreation Complex, which everyone in Sherwood Park just calls GARC. And of course, you're that close to it. Some of our gym classes, we just went over and skated. So that might have been the first time that I skated. Similar time though, I guess like 9-10 years old would be when I first kind of got on the ice. And I do remember it being a struggle. I also just going through this, all these questions make things pop up in your brain. I do remember we're skating out there with no helmets. Like,
Oh, wow.
absolutely no helmet. Like, how is that?
How old are you?
I'm 42.
You're not much older than us.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I don't remember
I'm
wearing a
almost
helmet because I
certain
remember
you had
falling
pants.
down and being like, ooh, that was close.
Yeah, totally.
I think gym class, the teachers did know better. It's like, let's just go out on the ice. I mean, figure skating, they still don't wear helmets. So.
Yeah.
I suppose.
You ever playing like broom ball?
Yeah.
I'm almost certain we had no helmets for that though.
Yes. And you're in your footwear.
Which is even worse
Which
than
is even
skates.
worse.
Except you can get going pretty good on skates.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, it's
Well-
kind of funny to think about that we just went out there without helmets on. I remember even early when I was coaching, like I'd coach spring leagues and things like that. And I remember when they brought the helmets in for coaches.
Right. Yeah.
And that being like, there was a bunch of pushback on that. And I was kind of like, I like just wearing a hat out there, but maybe I'll throw the helmet on.
Right.
I would never step out on the ice now.
Right.
Without, maybe on the outdoor rink, I might go for a little rip or something like that. But like during a practice or anything like that, there's no chance I would never wear a helmet. You get like used to it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you have to wear eye protection as a coach now? Or is
No,
it just
that's
I don't
not
think so.
mandatory.
Just helmet?
No. Some guys have visors, but you don't need one. You just need a helmet, and some guys don't even do them up. You're supposed to do the chin strap up, obviously.
guys
right?
just
Got the big
But,
dangler, yeah.
Todd Bertuzzi chin strap.
Yeah.
the days of the Craig McTavish style is gone. So, but it's insurance, it's concussions, it's just people being more aware of these things, right? But I'm curious. So you start baseball a little bit earlier. The path with baseball is a little different. In hockey, you kind of jump into it. At 10, you can't skate yet. Did you find that to be really overwhelming compared to baseball, where you maybe had a little bit more success earlier on and could build that confidence from an earlier age?
Yeah, I don't recall being overwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
Maybe I was just that kid that was just like, I'm trying, and
Yeah.
I could shoot decently, so I got goals every once in a while. So I'm like, everything's going well. I do remember like later, as I get into Pee Wee and Bantam and things like that, kind of recognizing when you look around and be like, whoa, that guy can skate like right past me. You know what I mean? Like you figure that sort of thing out, or when coaches ask you, like I remember this specifically when coaches are like, okay, we're going to do, the circles and we're going to do crossovers this way and then we're going to do crossovers that way. And I was like, oh, the other way? Like those sorts of things when you're, when you realize that you can't do a skill that seems like it should be a natural thing.
Right.
I remember that being a thing, crossovers one way or backwards crossovers the other way, or they want you to stop with both feet one way, and I'm like, I'm not great on that edge. You know what I mean? Like I remember that specifically, but I don't remember being like, oh my God, like I'm the worst hockey player ever. It was just I am where I am. I'm whatever tier I should have been in, and it just wasn't that that big of a thing for me. But now that you mention it, it was very much like baseball came to me quite quickly. I remember being relatively decent at it right away without a ton of effort. But yeah, hockey was definitely something that took me a lot more to do. And when you're younger, and I think a lot of people have this same thing, is when you're younger, if something doesn't come easy to you, sometimes it's harder to work on that one thing. Yeah. Whereas like now that I'm older, I feel like I could be like, oh, I really need to work on this one thing, and I'm okay with spending that time working on something I'm not great at.
Right.
Maybe you're looking over your shoulder when you're a kid and you're thinking, who's watching me not be able to do these crossovers? Whereas, when you get a little bit older, you're like, well, I just need to refine this skill. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, where do you think that mindset came from in terms of being, you're accepting how good you are at a sport where, some kids, you kind of touch that on it. It gets a little frustrating if you can't, get one thing right, and kids will throw a fit and cry and go off the ice. But where did your mindset come from of like, you know what, I'm not the greatest, but I'm okay where I am. I'm comfortable where I am in the game of hockey. How do you think you had that mindset?
I think maybe having parents that were very just laid back, where they would still celebrate your successes and all that sort of thing. But I didn't have the dad when you got in the car and it was like, well, they shot it around the boards and you didn't pick it up 3 times on one shift, and that I never heard any of that. So it was more just like, it sounds cliche, like of course they liked it when we won when we won, and all those sorts of things, and wanted to make sure I was working hard and all those sorts of things. But it was never, and even then it wasn't, you weren't working hard enough today.
Right.
So I think I had a little bit of my own space in sports, and so maybe that allowed for that to happen, where I didn't feel any pressure from my parents, so that I didn't put much pressure on myself. In baseball, when you start getting to a little bit higher levels, there still wasn't much pressure. A lot of times, my dad might be sitting behind the umpire watching me pitch, and he might be pacing a little bit, those sorts of things. But even then, like getting in the car, it wasn't like, your release point is too high, and those sorts of things.
Right.
It was more, once again, sounds cliche. Did you have a good time? Great. You were working hard out there. That's kind of all they care about.
Right. For sure.
So I think this is a common theme in all of our talks right now, is the parents are extremely supportive. Like they obviously got you there and back. They were supporting you in other ways, like just keeping you going the whole time. So it's like, how did your mom come and play in this as well? Like she obviously, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, my mom was, my dad was a long haul trucker, so he was out of town all the time. And so through the week, if I had anything, she would be the one that got me there. Yeah. So, she came into play a lot, especially with I have 3 other brothers, right? So
yeah, big family. She's got to take care of everyone. That's when your dad's gone. So there's a lot on her plate there.
Yeah, and a lot of my brothers, they're my youngest of my brothers is 5 years older than me. So some of them were out of the house by the time I started doing sports. So not to take away from anything for sure. But yeah, she was the one that got me there. Once again, extremely supportive. I can't recall even one time her commenting on my play, besides like, good job today, or you know what I mean? So I never really got a ton of pressure from anybody.
I think that's so important. Yeah. That unconditional support, no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she wasn't like raw either. It wasn't like you're the best, or like, you should be on this team because you pitch so well, or, it wasn't anything like that. They let me throw a baseball against the fence in the backyard and didn't complain when I broke it a few times and all that sort of thing. And just kind of let me do my own thing.
Yeah. Just a good balance, right? Like not too high, not too low, supportive, but not putting that extra pressure, unrealistic expectations on you. Cause I mean, you do see that in hockey sometimes where, it's like, well, you got to play in the top tier or top 2 tiers, and anything below that is sort of unacceptable, and then it's not even worth it. And I mean, your story really shows that, hey, like you can still get a lot out of the game, even if you're not playing AAA all the time, and you can enjoy it for years, and not only the U Sport years, but further past that when you're now playing men's league, right? So it's great to see, because it definitely sounds like that helped you keep your passion for hockey for a lot longer than if there would have been a bunch of pressure.
Yeah, if there was ever a mention of what tier I was in, or like, oh, if you worked a little harder, maybe you could do this, or blah, blah, blah. It was just like, bring me to the games. Yeah. Pat on the back when I got a goal or 2 or something like that. And that's pretty much all it was. So.
Any other sports mixed in there for you that you dabbled in?
School sports, when I got into junior high, basketball.
Yeah.
I honestly think basketball might have been the only one I did at junior high. County champions, no big deal. FR Haythorne.
Oh, nice.
No big deal. So basketball when I was in junior high, and then, I dabbled in a few other sports. I believe in my grade 9 year, I might have played some indoor soccer just to try it out, see what it was like. And then in high school, I played football for a couple of years, and I I tried out for basketball, didn't make it. The county champion tag didn't follow me, I guess, when they went over to Facey. And so the basketball went away and football kind of took its place. That is the craziest sport that I've ever played in my entire life.
Yeah.
What was your position there?
So high school, and especially like back then, I think it's probably a lot more specialized now. I was kicking the ball. I was O lineman, D lineman. I was a slot back. I was all over the place.
Oh, nice.
Utility man.
Yeah, it changed year to year, and I was tall, but I wasn't very filled out. So like O lineman and stuff like that, like I could keep people away just because I could like reach, but that wasn't really. I don't know. That wasn't really my forte. Once you start getting into senior high school and you got 250-pound D lineman coming at you, or 200-pound anyways, it wasn't the best thing. So just played some junior football. I don't even think I played senior football, just for a couple of years there at Facey, and it's a cool experience. I'm glad once again that my parents were supportive of me playing. I don't know specifically if that was one. I'd be a little nervous with my guys playing that. Just some of the stuff that I saw and went through, and I was like, that was like kickoff is like war.
Right.
Like anybody can hit anybody, and and it's high school football, so people are just looking to run people over, right? So that was a crazy sport for sure.
You mentioned that you liked the physical side in hockey. Was that something that drew you to football? Is the initial physicality of it?
Yeah, I enjoyed that for sure. It gets ramped up quite a bit when every play is just super violent. It seems like in hockey, you keep your head on a swivel, and maybe throughout the game, 10 or 15 hits will happen to you. Right. You'll engage. In football, it's every single play you're engaging physically with somebody, right? Yeah. So it's felt like it was at like a higher level, and it also felt like people are coming from blind sides, and that's okay, and people are coming at full rip all the time. It just felt like it gets ramped up quite a bit in football for sure.
What I really liked about football and playing, and especially in high school too, a lot of the structure and almost kind of like, I don't want to say military mindset, but just the organization, the game planning, the structure.
Almost choreography.
You get taught a lot of things, I think, on that side, from the non-game side of football. What's your take, on that aspect?
Yeah, I remember enjoying that. Like, you have when you're an O lineman, and you have some plays and you have to execute those and all that kind of stuff. I enjoyed that. But that wasn't my main focus in it, It is also such a big team. So that was kind of an interesting thing. When it came to football, it's like you're on the team with, in hockey, it's around 20, usually, even in minor hockey. But in football, you have 40, 50 players on a team, and if you're practicing junior and senior, you might have 70 kids out there. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow.
And that's all one big squad, right? So that was kind of an interesting one. And like playing for your school is kind of an interesting dynamic. Like, of course, there's the Sherwood Park St. Albert rivalry when you're a Sherwood Park kid. Yeah. Sorry if any of you guys are St. Albert people. Okay.
We hate them too.
Yeah, there you go. And so that's there, I guess. But there's something about playing football when you're playing Sal, when you're Facey. Like that's a thing, and people from your school are out, and that's just kind of an enjoyable thing.
Totally. Yeah. And so we got to ask, obviously, about gaming and esports. Yeah. When did you start finding the passion for that?
Always, kind of.
Yeah.
Like I legitimately remember like Coleco. I'm old,
Classic.
But like Coleco and Atari and all those sorts of things. And then somebody in my family, the family friends, ended up getting a Nintendo, and you play the first Super Mario, and that's burned in my mind. And Tetris, when we got a Nintendo eventually, and we got Tetris, and I still remember being, I think it was 7, 8 years old, and my dad and my much older brothers are playing Tetris, and then they get to a point where it was where they were in trouble, and they would just hand the controller over to me. Oh, wow. And then I get them out of trouble, and then they continue. So I remember that. It's always been like kind of a part of my life. Like most things in life, it ebbs and flows. When I'm in high school, and just out of high school and other things come into play. I'm in a band and doing things like that. Some sports things, obviously. So, it wanes a little bit at that point, and then, it comes back up again as I get a little bit older and get a little more free time. And then you have kids, and maybe it goes down a little bit for a few years when it's all hands on deck for a while. And then, it's back with a vengeance now, and now a little more interested in the coaching aspects of the game, in the nuance of the game, of exploring it with other people and showing our student athletes how certain games work and all the little intricacies of it. And so yeah, it's been a part of my life, my whole life for sure, and differing levels for sure.
And mainly on PC, or was it console?
When I was a kid, it was very much console.
I guess at the start it kind of had to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you started getting into, all of these things are going to age me, but you start getting into the point where you have the old, Wolfenstein and Doom, and you get those on the little discs or whatever. Yeah. And those computers were awful, and they cost $3,000 at the time. They were so expensive, right? But you start playing those sorts of games, and those were fun, and obviously they kind of spawned the whole genre, those two games in specifically. But most of the time you're playing console. Now it's completely switched over to PC, and that is the strong driver of video games, I'd say. At least esports is very, very much PC.
What was the first game you remember where you play online against other people?
Ooh, that's a good one. Man, playing online against other people.
Would have been Warcraft or Command and Conquer. Could you do online?
I think Command and Conquer, that's a good one. There was a weird thing where you would they had their own servers and you could remote into games. That's a good one. That might be the first one I remember playing online. I like Command and Conquer Red Alert or whatever, where that was a great game. Some of the best music of all time too. So that one was one of the first ones that I played for sure. I do remember, I love these questions because they bring back all of these memories of things that I just wouldn't remember before. I used to work for Dell Computers, and obviously there was a whole bunch of nerds in that building. And so what they did was they set up Quake servers. So then all of us would be waiting for a phone call or whatever, and we would just be playing Quake against each other, which is really cool. And somebody ported in NHL 94 or 95, whichever one's the best one.
Probably 94.
Yeah.
I like 96 the best for some reason.
That's outrageous. Anyways, so they ported that in, but then they put in all the like stats and names of like current players. Oh. So that we would play that against each other all the time. Oh, it was sweet. That was a fun time, especially when you would get a call and you'd be like playing on your computer.
At that time, you had to be like local, like you had to be like all together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, LANs or whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I mean, technically you're playing online, but you're playing with all the people around there. That was just that was a great thing. And then they shut that down. So they recognized that there was a bunch of
productivity probably went forward.
Well, there was a bunch of traffic going around with everybody like remoting into the server that the person made or whatever, right? And they're supposed to be used for business stuff. Yeah.
That's funny.
I didn't create the servers. I just dabbled on the games.
I remember at least for me, Matt and I and one of our other good buddies growing up, we would golf together during the day, and then we would go home and play Tiger Woods on our PC and golf against each other virtually until we went to bed, and then we'd do it all over again. Being a guy that also likes sports, were you really into the sports games too growing up?
Of course, I played NHL.
Yeah.
Play Madden too?
Not
football, no?
Not really. I just those never stuck with me. Like more like Tecmo Bowl back in the day, Nintendo one. That one was good. I remember specifically, speaking of sports that I'm not super into that I played. There was a Super Nintendo game. It was FIFA. Okay. We played that all the time.
Still massive now.
Yeah. But there was like the first one on the Super Nintendo. I remember it being like a big deal. And once again, one of those ones that brings you and your buddies together. We're always playing against each other or whatever. I'm trying to think of sports games that I was really into. Those would be more like single player. I know like specifically now my kids maybe got a PS5 a Christmas or two ago, and that MLB The Show, that was that is like a comfort. I could just go play a game. I'm not worried about online. I don't do the Dynasty. I don't do blah blah. I just go and play a game. That makes me very happy. It's really like calming.
Your happy place.
Yeah. I don't need all the extra. I get bells and whistles and ads thrown at me and blah, blah, blah. Just do the MLB The Show and just play a single game. Yeah, it's a good relaxer.
Well, rolling back a bit on that, because we've talked about video games actually a little bit with hockey players and how that kind of shaped and helped their passion for the game overall. And again, for most of us in this age bracket, there was a time before when you couldn't play against people online. It was literally if you were going to play multiplayer, you had to play against a sibling or get a neighbor over or a classmate or a buddy. Maybe talk about that. Like, it sounds like you played with your brothers a little bit, but did you have like a group of friends that you physically played with before you went more online?
Yeah. Like anybody else, like, you know, you ride bikes with your friends, you go play basketball with your friends, blah, blah, blah. And there's, I remember specifically going with friends to rent a game and then you played all weekend sort of thing, right? I remember in late junior high, early high school, GoldenEye was a massive thing in Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like periods of weeks where we would just go over to the same guy's house after school every day and play that game and yell at each other for being Odd Job or who was the other guy. There was another
Golden
guy.
Gun, the man with
The Golden Gun, yeah. But it was Odd Job was way too small. His hitbox was small. And then Baron Samdi, I think his name was like really, really thin. And so if you chose those, then you got yelled at because you're being cheap. But I do remember playing with those friends for that game. There's a group of people I play with right now. There's two people that I play with, and they live in the United States. One lives in Washington, D.C. One lives in Colorado. Literally, one of my other friends that I played with put out a Reddit post, and they said, would anybody like to play this game that we were into? Because we're always going with random people, and we wanted to get some new people to play with. Yeah. And these two people responded to that, and we ended up playing with them, and we've been playing together. Literally never met these two people, and I've been playing games with them for 10, 15 years at this point. Wow. And it's just like my one buddy's getting married, and there's the talk of them coming up and meeting for the first time all that sort of thing. Cool. It's just an interesting, like having a relationship with someone for over 10 years that you've never spent a minute with in the same room. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild. And I'm just having flashbacks to the whole renting process. And so how did you decide who had to walk to Blockbuster to get the games? Did you do a rotation, or how'd that go?
I think my one friend was rich, so he always was the guy that rented. The store in Sherwood Park was called Wilkie's, I remember right now. I remember from back in the day there. It was on the corner of Brentwood and Sherwood Drive, right by that Esso there. Yeah, and I just remember walking to that, and that place was far, but it was the place that actually rented Super Nintendo games. Okay. Because we didn't have much in Sherwood Park at the time that would do that. So the one place that did, we'd go all the way across Sherwood Park just to get it.
Like how far? Like were you guys walking or biking? Or
we bike everywhere back in the day.
Like how far was this bike ride?
I'm just trying to think. So my friend lived in Nottingham, and so that is on the very east side of Sherwood Park at the time, and then Wilkie's would have been by Sherwood Park Mall. So I'd probably say 5-6 kilometers at least. At least
how
to get
going to get these games?
9, 10. Back in the day, then as long as you were home before the sun went down, then you were okay, right?
Totally.
So, yeah.
And so, I mean, back at this time, there's obviously no real gaming integration within the schools, but other than, you're probably talking about it with some friends, you're probably talking about some strategy at recess, that kind of stuff. I think the odd time we maybe had a console that was brought in for like a
Game Boy. Someone brought their new
Game Boy color in. Game Boy, or instead of watching a movie, you could play a little bit of PlayStation or whatever.
I don't remember those days.
PlayStation would have been PlayStation wouldn't have been invented yet. But like, how did you kind of, because it wasn't as widespread, how did you find this group of friends? Like, how did you gravitate towards each other? Like, if there's no hockey tryouts or there's no esports tryouts, was it more just sort of conversations and trying to find like-minded, aligned friends?
Yeah, I think it's like anything else. You make friends at school, like everyone did back in the day. I think it was a lot more actually insular when you were, when there wasn't, the internet wasn't huge then. When you're playing on a hockey team, you're playing in Sherwood Park with the same people. Like everything was kind of in the same space, right? So you make friends at school, and like anything else, you maybe hang out with a guy at school, and they mention that they like playing on Super Nintendo. You're like, I like that, and you kind of make a connection there. Right. And it just kind of happens naturally that that video games just become a part of what you do with your friend group, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So after high school, let's maybe go there for a little bit. After high school, you mentioned working at Dell. What was kind of the journey after you graduated high school?
Yeah. A lot of kind of moving around. Definitely, worked at Dell. Was in a band, went across Canada a couple times. Just that was more like you paid for a vacation through playing different shows kind of thing, or you only had to pay a little bit less to get to Montreal and back. So that was that sort of thing. Definitely, I worked at Dell, worked a few odd jobs here and there. And the Dell one was fun. Definitely worked its way into the nerdy side of things, the things that I liked. I was quite good at that. I liked that a lot. And then from there, I think AAD might have been the next thing right after. And so started there once again, being good with computers, being slightly artistic, so I could take photos and do all those sorts of things. That's kind of got my foot in the door at AAD, and been working there for, I think we're at 17 years now, and just kept getting things added to the plate. So it's time to do website stuff. It's time to do the t-shirt design and all that sort of thing, right? So, then
coffee mugs.
Absolutely, coffee mugs. Yeah.
They look great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Very stylish.
I appreciate that. And then, lucky enough, I've been kind of bugging for the last few years that esports was a niche, that it was becoming one of the biggest things in the world here, and that there would be desire for student athletes to come and train and get good at certain video games. And luckily, I'd say it would be 4 years now, I got the go ahead to explore it, and we were able to the next year offer it as a program at Vimy.
I guess, when did your passion for coach, because like all of a sudden you wanted to be a coach, like where did this passion start begin, I guess?
As far as coaching overall?
Just in general, yeah.
Yeah. I think the first foray into coaching was when I had started working at AAD, was my friend Kelvin worked over at Don, and he was the hockey director at the time. And they had a spring hockey team, so the Don and All-Stars, and he asked me if I wanted to help coach that. And so I coached that spring team for a little while, and that kind of gave me the bug. Learned a ton from Kelvin, made me understand the game way more, and it was fun kind of gathering all that information, learning it, and then helping the kids out, right? So went from there, coached a few years, Pee Wee AA, Bantam AA, Bantam AAA with another AD employee, which was Paul Rye, and coached them for a while. And then, you start getting to the point where I start having kids, and then I wanted to be a coach for them. I felt like I had gained some knowledge at that point, and it would be really fun to teach my own kids. So, and just ever since I started doing that spring hockey team, that's got to be almost 20 years ago at this point. Wow. From then on, it's just been a coach at different sports, different levels, and something I really enjoy.
And, obviously, like you mentioned, you have those tech skills, and they're super valuable within the AD office. How did those come about? Was that all kind of self-taught? Do you think there was a parallel there with your interest in gaming and computers that kind of allowed you to get to a point where you could literally work at a company like Dell?
Yeah. Once again, yeah, it does seem like it's pretty organic that happened. I did take some computer science courses and things like that in high school and in post-secondary. But a lot of it is when you're in the, let's say, mid-90s and you want to play a game, and if something doesn't work, you got to figure it out.
Right.
And my parents, 0% computer knowledge. So if anything goes, maybe not 0%, I don't want to besmirch the good name of Wayne and Patty, but but very low levels of computer knowledge. So if something was broken, I had to fix it.
Right.
And so maybe that is how you gain some of the skills.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of builds. I go to Dell, and Dell shows me there's a bunch of different you get to do different clinics and things like that where they show you how to tear apart a laptop and put it back together, and show you what all the parts and everything what they do, and you're sending parts out to different computers when different customers, when they call in and say this isn't working, and you can kind of diagnose it over the phone. So you get to the point where you just have a lot of knowledge in it, just through doing your job, right? So, and then it's, start exploring a little bit more the creative side, which I thank AAD for a lot, where it's, I'm pretty sure I can take pictures. They're like, okay, come and go do that. And I learn some things, and I read a bunch of books, and I try to get better at that and learn how to design clothes and all that. A lot of it has been kind of, I'm in this position, I got to figure it out.
Right. It's kind of like when you played football.
You gotta figure out.
Utility guy.
Yeah.
A few less concussions, but
Here's a role, and we need you to fill it.
absolutely. Right? Yeah. That's kind of a little bit of been the theme kind of my life, has been a lot of opportunities come up, and it's like, well, am I going to step through that door? Well, like, what do I need to do to be effective at this? Right. So even now I feel like a lot of my roles have really like a wide skill set.
Right.
Which has served me well, being able to coach baseball and hockey and esports and all these sorts of things. Having a I would say a decent level of knowledge in all those things has allowed me to coach at different levels and have a whole bunch of different experiences.
You sound like an incredible teammate, is what it sounds like. Like that obviously maybe started as a kid as you playing in team sports, but now like with your AD team, like you just seem like you're always there for the team and in like a very supportive role. Quite a bit.
I appreciate that. That's a big compliment.
Let's start with like youth sports. You found like just being as a team and it's something you just wanted to always kind of be a part of, because you were in a band as well.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
So,
yeah.
I'm sure that there's some people throughout the years that weren't the biggest fan of my my team aspect of things. I'm sure, but I do enjoy like the entire process, whatever I'm a part of. Everyone being successful, being a part of that feels good to me, right? So with esports, I'm working with a teacher here to build what we're doing over at Vimy, seeing some kids realize their potential and get a lot better, being able to track those things. I absolutely love that, right? So that's one of the other big things with me is I'm kind of I love having data and watching things grow, right? So a specific thing at Vimy Esports is we actually track their aiming ability. So it's just like just their mouse and keyboard ability, and there's a program that kind of tracks their abilities, and year over year, well, not even year over year, we do a check-in in the fall, in the winter, in the spring every year, and there's now kids that are 3 years in that have 9 different data points on that, and being able to watch them grow is kind of an interesting thing. So it's nice being a part of that, and when you see the actual results, and you can kind of look back and be like, this is the thing that we implemented that maybe helped that happen, or what can we do in the future? Why isn't it getting as high as we want it to be, right? So what can we implement in the future? Can we make this happen more often, and maybe that'll help things go? Those are the sorts of things that I'm kind of passionate about.
It's cool too that it's objective data and not, because a lot of sports are getting there more. Like Moneyball is obviously a good example, but in the golf space, you've got these simulators that are tracking all these metrics that never existed
we have
before.
strokes gained now.
Right. Yeah.
The tough with golf is you need to input the stats yourself. So there could be a hair skewed on the highest on the highest level. Someone else is doing it for you. But
Sure. And hockey's got more advanced analytics than it ever has. But you still in any team sport have a level of subjectiveness. Right? It's still relying on a scout to have a certain opinion, or a GM or a coach or whatever. So it's really interesting that in esports you can have a lot of that purely objective data that you can go forward with.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things, you guys said at the beginning, one of the things that I want to try to do is trying to bring some of that traditional sports to esports, right? So it's a fun space for me to work in, because I feel like, at least scholastically, there hasn't been anything like what we're doing. So I get to kind of figure things out. I get to fail. I
guess you're a pioneer, really.
Well, okay, sure.
There's no one else doing it. So
yes, sure. That makes me a little uncomfortable, like the bio at the beginning, but I appreciate it. But yeah, so some of the things that you take from baseball, from hockey, right? So baseball is there's a lot of video, right? So you wouldn't be able to really tell a ton about someone's swing just from watching it live. The really good ones can, but they break things down frame by frame in a batter's swing. In hockey, there's lots of video that you go through as a team and things like that. So clearly esports does that as well, but it's something that you can bring to esports, right? So taking some of the knowledge that I've gained from other traditional sports and bringing it to esports is a great thing. specifically on the coaching end of things. So, there's Hockey One, and there's all those sort of coach certifications that you can get through. What is it's the locker, the ends. NCCP?
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can get all those sort of certifications. And I really found that there's been a lack of that in esports. So in January, we were able to have a coaches clinic for esports in Red Deer. So we brought a bunch of coaches from esports from schools all over Alberta. And we were able to have a coaches clinic down there. And I was really passionate about, I've seen a lot of these coaches clinics. I even, my coach certification, I'm really happy that I have a coach certification. It's super general. It's super like, this is how you treat an esports athlete, and this is how you set up a practice and things like that. And I was just like, I want to, just like in Hockey One, where they're like, they might show you, this is how you teach someone to skate, or, this is how they have to turn their foot and all this sort of thing, right? I wanted to have a coaches clinic for the game. So my game that I coach, specifically is Rocket League. And so if you don't know what that one is, it's you're in a little car and you shoot a soccer ball into the net. So that's kind of the basics of the game, right? Yeah. So I did a coaches clinic specifically on that game. So it's like, this is how you teach this skill. This is how you teach a team how to do rotations and how they do, how they do their communication. You do things exactly specifically to that game, because we want to be able to set the foundation for how coaches should coach that all around Alberta. Right. Because if we want anything, we want Alberta to represent Canada. We want us to do strongly in national competitions, which we have been, but we want to keep that going, right?
Right.
I think the biggest thing too is if the competition gets better in Alberta, then your students have more people to compete with, so everyone can sort of get better over time.
Yeah, and then maybe people recognize, I think specifically of, lacrosse players in Canada are really sought after down in the States because we play box lacrosse and we have that special skill of being quick with our sticks, right? Maybe at some point, esports scholarships are looking for people from Alberta because we just continually win nationals, or we're known as really mechanical players or something like that, so that we're sought after as well. So then people who are going through hopefully our program, but other programs are able to get some scholarships.
I think you have an advantage in the coaching aspect just because you come from traditional sports. Not that esports is not. Yeah. It's just new, right?
Yeah.
Do you find that...
I say traditional sports too.
Do you find there's a bit of a difference in someone that's a coach that may not have played other team sports growing up compared to someone like you has a vast background like you have?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the coaches now, if we're talking about specific esport coaches, are ex-players, right? And so I think one of the advantages of being a traditional sport coach is I think that there is a more of a team aspect in most of those traditional sports. I mean, at least the ones that I've played, where esports, even when people were on teams, it seems like they're kind of in their own. There's very, very few teams that would actually get together in a house and they would, practice as a team and all that kind of stuff. I mean, at the very highest levels that they are, but usually you're still kind of on your own. So some of those, social skills and team skills and all those sorts of things, they aren't taught as much. So being a traditional sports person, I can kind of try to take some of that and put it into esports because I think it's valuable. I think one of the things that I see in esports sometimes is almost a celebration of, how do I say this? Not bad sportsmanship, but just some of the way that they act towards their opponents. I'm very strongly for respecting your opponents, no matter what.
Not trying to make them look bad, like doing something, like teabagging or something like
that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's definitely something that you don't want to do.
Can we describe what that is for the people?
I don't think you can.
No, we can't. Okay.
No. It's just the way of reacting when you eliminate someone on the other team, and it's really rude.
Right. Salt in the wound, kind of.
Yes, it is.
Not
absolutely
sportsmanlike.
But there's lots of esports videos where you see a team. And they lean over the computers and they're finger at the other guy, those sorts of things. And it's almost celebrated sometimes in replay, in recaps of a tournament and things like that. And I'm not very much at Vimy. We're not that way. Right. We specifically have conversations of, GGs in chat when you're done. We're not talking during chat during the game. we're all positive as far as that goes. And we want to bring that sort of traditional mindset, the handshakes at the end of a hockey series, even though we just beat the hell out of each other for a week. Bringing that to esports is another one of the things I'm passionate about. I guess I'm passionate about a lot of things.
That's good.
You find like the interaction after is, like you see football, like after everyone's kind of getting together. You find in esports it's still a bit, it doesn't kind of end after the game all the time.
Yeah. I will say one thing. We're still very much as much as everyone thinks esports is like the biggest thing in the world, we're still kind of in the infancy, especially scholastically. We've been to one in-person event. So there hasn't been much for in-person scholastic events. At that event, what I will say is there was a lot of camaraderie. There's a lot of, and maybe partially because it was such a new thing, there's a lot of, this team's from Fort McMurray and this team's from Lethbridge, and like, hey, like your guys' jerseys are really cool. And there's a lot of that sort of thing. And even after games, like hard-fought wins, hard-fought losses, there was handshakes. There might be like the same thing you see in hockey. Like, yes, I'm going to shake your hand, but maybe I'm like still a little bit upset, but it was really good when I saw that in person. So I have hope that that's kind of the standard that's being set in Alberta. And we're starting with the scholastic. That's the grassroots of things, right? So hopefully when they do move on to, a higher level college or pro or anything like that, that's kind of brought with them, right?
That's the importance of the coach setting good examples, like for all the teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking about it the other day. It's like, I don't think you're a great coach if you're not always kind of thinking, what can I do better, and all that sort of thing. And, I was watching, who was I watching? There was a coach, who's the Canes coach?
Rob Brindamore.
Rob Brindamore. And there was a play that happened against them, and everyone on the bench is freaking out, and he's standing there and he's stoic, and and I know that that's just who he is anyways, but the players could turn around and see that and be like, okay, well, he's not freaking out, so we're not freaking out, Right. And that's one of the things that I'm like thinking about myself. Like sometimes I can get a little pumped up in the game. Am I ever like yelling at anybody or anything like that? No, but sometimes when I feel like I could be a little more even keeled, right? So,
yeah, it's that balance, right? Because you want to be passionate, you want to show your students and your teammates that you care, but at the same time, not get to a point where you can't control yourself and you're not being professional, not being respectful of your opponent, that kind of stuff, right?
And it never does get to that point for sure, but I'm just thinking about, the next time that there's something like that happens, because it happens, someone's being disrespectful to our team, because that does happen for sure, or there's some sort of unforeseen circumstance, being the kind of the solid voice in that is, I just know that the next time I need to do that, I just want to be that voice.
What are some other ways that you could kind of get under the skin of your opponent? Like I think of hockey, you could take, make some dirty plays, take some bad penalties. You could be yapping. Obviously, that is something you can do digitally in the chat. And you've already talked about that, how you guys are saying we're not chatting during the game. Yeah. You can cut corners. You can do some, you can cheat. Are those things all kind of possible in esports? Like, can you get away with some of that stuff? Or
I mean, you would hope not cheating. Yeah. But and we definitely don't even try to err on the side of like being cocky or anything like that to try to. And we talked about some examples of kind of disrespecting your opponent. We don't want to do that. Is there a time and a place for mind games? Yes, there absolutely is. Sure. So the specific example, and I'll try to be quick for this for the people who don't know Rocket League very well. In Rocket League, if you run into the other team at a certain speed, you blow them up. Oh. So we specifically have a week of training where we talk about just that skill, where we talk about the psychology of that skill. So does it feel good when you get demoed and you have to not play for 3 seconds? No, it doesn't feel good. Right. And also you're out of the play for 3 seconds, so it can mess up teams' rotations and things like that. But we talk about the psychology of it because it really does bother the other team. Sure. So do we want them getting out of the rotations and going crazy and going to look for those? No, we absolutely don't. But when we're doing our rotation, can we maybe clip the goalie as we go by, which is completely legal as opposed to hockey where it's... Yes. Yeah. Can we maybe make it part of our rotation as we get out? Are we going to run that goalie over? Or if we're rotating out on defense and they have someone who's ready to shoot in the slot, maybe we demo that guy. Right. And if you're getting demoed, it can get really frustrating.
Sure.
And then they can start chasing, and then they're out of position and you get to score, right? So those are, that's a specific example of something where you can get someone off of their game, for sure. And there's examples in other games too, right? So we play another game called Valorant, and Overwatch as well. Those are FPS games. So as in you see your gun and your
First person shooter, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Thanks
in
for
those sorts of
clarifying.
games,
I wasn't sure on that, so I appreciate that.
in those sorts of games, you can overwhelm the other team. Like we had a discussion last week in our season game. We talked about pacing a whole bunch. So we found that when we were playing attack, and we were, which means you were trying to, in this specific game in Valorant, you're just trying to plant the spike. So you're trying to get onto their site and you're trying to plant the spike, and they're trying to stop you. When we were on attack, we were go, go, go. We were on our toes and they had no answer for us. When we were on defense, our pacing really slowed down. And traditionally it does, because you hold those sites, so you're waiting for them to come and you don't know what site they're coming to. But there's a way to change up the pacing that can mess with people. If they're expecting you to sit back and all of a sudden you go, that can really, really mess with them. And if you did that over and over again and you're just suffocating and overwhelming, that can really mess with the way that they're thinking, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like a neutral zone trap almost.
Or in basketball,
changing
yeah.
forecheck.
Yeah.
or
Yeah. What is
Hard
that called?
press?
Full press?
Full court press?
Yeah.
How many programs are there out there right now, like you guys, in Alberta and even across the country?
So, as far as I know, and I always preface it this way, if anyone knows of somebody who's doing what we're doing, please let me know, because I want to play against them. But I don't know of any other program doing what we do in all of Canada. So, and what I mean by that is that we're a public school academy, which means they're with us 5 days a week during their school time. So I don't know of anybody else who's doing that. There's one in Montreal, I believe, where they go to school half the day and then they go off site with another company. That is something. And then there's a lot of the way that we like to separate it here in Alberta, or at least in Edmonton, is club, class, or academy. So a club is you're doing lunchtime, you're doing after school, things like that. A class is at least like a semester of a class, where people can opt in as like a junior high option or something like that, right? And then academy would be what we do, which is 2 blocks a day, every single day. It's a separate thing, like a hockey academy would be, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And with the academy, they're still doing a lot of their traditional phys ed programming as well. Like there's obviously the esports component, but I think that's important to talk about as well, is the balance between, not just playing games all the time, but still doing a lot of those great activities and team building, situations that, you might not get if you're just playing a game, right?
Yeah, so they definitely have to do their gym time through us, and then we go well beyond that. So I wouldn't have been able to have this program happen. Our board wouldn't have allowed it if there wasn't a health component to it, an active component to it. So usually what we like to say is 40 to 60% of the time they're doing esports things, which would mean training, drills, video review, things like that. And the other 40 to 60% they're doing something active, or they're doing like their health,
Right.
or through us or whatever, right? And so that is obviously like traditional gym class and things like that. But it is also like we treat them like real athletes, right? They go to the fitness center, they go to the weight room, they do spin classes, they do yoga, they do all those sorts of things, right? I think one of the stereotypes of esports is that they just sit around and play video games, but if you look,
Working
if you
on
do,
their thumbs and grip strength.
yeah, well, and it's funny.
Not to joke, but it probably do that.
But that it brings up a good point, because people will sometimes say things like that it's just like, oh, what can they really work on? Well, what they can work on is they can work on posture, they can work on hand-eye as far as their athleticism goes, right? They can work on general fitness. If you're going to be a part of some of these games will end up being 2-3 hours when you're talking at the highest level of like League of Legends or Dota, which are longer games. Those can actually weigh on you after a while, right? Yeah. And so if you're not in decent shape, that can result in a drop off, right? So with us, we've been really lucky. When Miss Osgood was our fitness director, and now when Mr. Fountain is our strength and conditioning coach. They treat our kids like athletes too.
Right.
Do our kids need to be able to bench press 200 pounds? 100% not. Do they need to do like power speed, plyo box jumps and things like that? They don't really need to do that.
Right.
They need to have decent cardio. We need to work on our core strength. We need to, we do some weight training for our grade 9 through 12s.
Yeah.
But we tailor it. And Miss Osgood and Mr. Fountain have been great about it. They tailor it to what an esports athlete needs.
Right.
And what I really enjoyed about that is we work in a traditional sports setting. And, one of the fears is that traditional sports people might kind of like brush it aside. But they both seem to have looked things up and been like, what do esports athletes need? What do they do at the highest level?
Right.
How can we bring that down to junior high and high school level? Right. So been really pleased with how they've been programmed for by our fitness professionals.
What about reaction time and like fast twitch? Is that a pretty important skill or asset for a esports athlete to have?
Absolutely. And that, our fitness sessions can be tailored to that. Once again, we're taking things from other sports. So, we have our goaltending director, Curtis Muka. He has drills for them to do, tennis ball drills and all those sorts of things. Yeah. And, we do some cognitive things. So we take some of the stuff that the goalies are doing and we put that to our esports.
Right.
Because obviously I think that there's a connection there.
Totally.
Having good hand-eye is incredibly important when you're using both your hands on a keyboard and mouse, right? So it's another thing. I always love it when I can say, I took this from this sport and I took that from this sport and I bring it into this, right? Because that's where I think I'm kind of unique as far as that goes. Yeah,
it's great for them now, but it's also setting them up for like a healthy lifestyle as they exit high school.
Right.
Absolutely. And you know what? There's a few things that I feel like some of them may have not been introduced to, right? So some of them might not have been on a team. Some of them are. Of course, we have baseball players, we have hockey players, we have all those sorts of things on our team, but some of them haven't been on a team setting. So another unique thing about esports is we actually provide their competitive opportunities. So we actually have teams for our school that compete. So we actually get to talk about the team dynamic. We talk about communication, and not only do we talk about what you should be saying, and we really do nail down like literally the words you should be saying, but we also talk about tone, tenor of timing, right? When someone gets scored on in hockey, in Rocket League, in anything, is that the best time to go over to your buddy and be like, hey, you really should have done this? Like if you're on a hockey team, then you might get a dirty, stinky glove in the face, right? Yeah. So and maybe they haven't been in that situation before, right? So we talk about those things. We literally have for Rocket League, we have a poster that has what you should be saying. Say if the ball's up in the air and you're going to go, you literally just say, I'm up, because you have half a second to do that because you only have that time, right? You say things. Instead of saying, hey, Billy, I'm going around the back of the net here because I see this is happening, you don't have time for that. So we teach them how to dial that down, how to be way more efficient in what they're saying, right? And we will literally have video reviews where we go through and we talk about, okay, this is the way you're saying this. Can we just kind of tailor this down a little bit? And so if we're talking about it the other way, I do feel like every defenseman coach in hockey would love to have their kids communicate the way that our kids do in esports, right? Yeah. So it's like maybe that's one thing that esports can show to another sport, is that we spend the time to actually talk about literally the words they use. It is not a, hey, can you tell this person this thing? It's like, this is part of your job. You have to say this. Right. Wouldn't you just love to have a defenseman that's always calling over or always calling for a reverse and all those sorts of things? Yeah. You'd love that. And especially I think it's almost like an epidemic at the younger ages. They don't seem to do that. No. It's just like pulling teeth to try to get them to talk to each other, right?
Well, even in the skill sessions, I try to bring in communication quite a bit, because it's like anything. If you don't practice it, you can't expect to do it under the pressure of a game, right? You got to build that routine, build those habits in an environment where it's a little bit easier to do. And whether that's calling out numbers that we're trying to get them to say or whatever it is, just getting used to that habit. The next layer then is obviously having people on the same page. If it's a specific play, one person can't be saying reverse and the other person off the boards. You don't have time. It's got to be clear and concise, no different than football plays or set hockey plays. Like, everybody needs to be on the same page.
Absolutely.
But the question I have for you is, so when they're playing as a team in this type of game or situation, are they communicating digitally, or are they verbally actually making these communications to each other, or does it depend?
I mean, it depends if they're all in the same room.
Right.
Would you be on voice chat though?
They are in voice chat even if they are in the same room.
Gotcha. Okay.
But is there a little more communication that can happen in between? Coach to them and between each other. When we're in person, there's some of those things, especially like when we're on stage at, a live event, then maybe I can go over a little bit more with them, but most of it is digitally. So they'll be using a digital platform to talk to each other. They're all in the same lobby. And even that, I will tell you, the first few times that happens, it's like listening to what's going on in there is crazy. So like, there's a time to turn on the silliness and there's a time to turn it off, right? So we kind of let them know that, like, hey, if we're playing like a casual game, or we're in between games, or like not pregame when it's like a league game or a tournament game or anything like that, but when it's, same thing when you're on the ice.
Right.
When you're on the ice, there's times when you're chit-chatting and it's nothing to do with hockey, and that stuff is super important.
Right.
But when it comes time to actually be engaged in the game, then you need to bring it down. And so we'll literally just be in chat with them. It's like, okay, we're going to focus on our comms now, and they know, and that's just time to go. That we need to just kind of chill out, and we need to be, we have a hierarchy when it comes to who talks in certain games. Right. So like in Valorant, once again, there's a thing called an IGL, which is an in-game leader, which you could think of as like your captain.
Sure.
So that person everyone's allowed to have input during the game, but they're supposed to be like letting people know what's going on. Okay, this person's here. They've got this weapon. We've got them there. The IGL is the only one that's supposed to be like, okay, it's time for us to rotate now. I hear this. This is where we're going. They run the show. And then in between rounds, they're kind of like making the adjustments. And then they allow for time for people to let them know what they see or to have some input. But there's actually a hierarchy. This person is the person that's running the show. Please give your input when it's the right time.
Right.
These communication skills are not only important for like the game itself, but just later in life. Like you're working in a team environment, like in an office or something, like obviously probably slower pace most likely, but it's so important for them to learn this now. So they can go straight into, like, once you get in the workforce, like you're always, actually it's why like I think like NCAA athletes are like the most sought after like employees.
Yeah.
Because they've been in team sports, to work hard, work together.
Yeah.
All this sort of stuff. So it's really cool that we're seeing this to your students.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you ever have to have conversations with your athletes in terms of like setting a lineup? So for, if there's a tournament you got and only 5 players can be in the game.
Yep.
Are you letting guys, having those sit downs like, hey, if you're not going to go today,
The healthy scratches.
Literally, like, what are some of the tougher conversations that you have to have with your athletes in terms of the lines of like a starting lineup, or who's being the IGL, that sort of thing?
We definitely have to have that conversation sometimes. We are in a school setting, so we're trying to be as fair as possible. I kind of take it the same way that I would take hockey, is that there's one non-developmental league in the world, right? And that's the NHL for hockey, obviously. And for us, it's like, if you're on a pro team, that is where 100% the skill is the only thing that matters. Here, it's all about development. So I do my very best to be very clear with subs, right? So multiple times we've had situations where Rocket League, you have 3 players and there's a 4th player who has come to be a sub for that day. I'm very clear with them, and I'm very clear with the parents that subs are not guaranteed play time, but I will do my very best to get them into a game. And as well, in between in that time when they're not playing, they'll be with me. We'll be looking at video. I'll be talking to them about like, okay, this is the way that you need to be doing this, or what did you see here? Those sorts of things. I try to get them engaged as far as that goes. But besides that, I very much, if someone's coming out, even as a sub, I cannot think of a situation where someone didn't get at least a game, and just make sure that they get a chance.
Just rotating everyone in, giving everyone opportunity in certain situations.
Yeah, and I remember last year even we had on our Valorant team there was probably like 8 or 9 kids that wanted to play, or were able to play from time to time, and so we would actually choose, okay, this person is a sub this week, and we would rotate them in. We just made sure everyone got an opportunity to see what competition was like, right? So that's been kind of the philosophy as far as that goes. As far as choosing the IGL, we've had actually the conversation on both ends of things, right? We've had the conversation of, you need to step up here. Like, you know the game better than anybody else right now. When I ask you a question, you're right on you know it right away, but you're also very much, they're not a cheerleader. They're not really a talkative person, and it's really hard for them to step out of their comfort zone. So having that conversation has been really difficult sometimes, where it's like, we need you to do this. But we try to get them out of their comfort zone as much as possible. And then, we've had the conversation the other way where we want to go with this person. They're a little more, they've been doing it a little bit more often. They have shown an ability to it, an affinity for it. And so we're going to go with them, but you will get an opportunity to try it. Because if someone comes to me and expresses, hey, I'd like to be more of a leader. Oh my God, is that not the greatest thing that you want to hear, right?
Yeah, totally.
So we do our best to make sure we give them opportunities. Will it be in a tournament? Will it be in a league game? It might not be, but it might be in class tournament, or it might be when we're doing a competitive game in the classroom.
Right.
But we'll make sure that somebody gets an opportunity. If they ask, we're going to see what they can do.
Right. And below that, again, I guess the hockey analogy. So you've got your captain.
Mm-hmm.
You've picked your lineup for the night, maybe even your starting lineup.
Mm-hmm.
But do you also have different roles? Like, do you have a power play? Do you have certain guys that are going to be on a special team, or is the variance of once you're playing from person to person pretty similar?
Yes. So they'll have roles. Okay. So in Rocket League right now, so that's once again the car game with the soccer balls. In that one, at the very, very high levels, they will actually be, the way that we do it is there's a position 1, a position 2, and a position 3. Position 1 is someone who's on the ball. Position 2 is getting ready, like open in the slot, trying to score the ball, or at least supporting the number 1. And then the number 3 is just making sure we don't get scored on. Yeah. At our level, those are just constantly rotating. Right? So our 1, 2, and 3, they're always rotating in. But at the highest levels, someone can like lean as a number 3. They're kind of always trying to be back. So we don't do that specifically, but at the highest levels, they do. When it comes to Overwatch and Valorant, which are the other 2 games that we play, there are different roles. So if anyone's played any games before, like a World of Warcraft or anything like that, there's a thing called a tank. That is a person who is the first person in, who is a big, beefy, has a shield, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. They're kind of calling the shots in the game a lot of the time, because they're saying, okay, we're going to enter now. I've got full health and blah, 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 blah. So they're kind of running the show, and, supports and those people that are at the back who are trying to heal, they maybe are a little more informational, right? So we'll talk about those roles. Those roles will be more based on who's playing, but sometimes we choose those roles in the game based on communication skills, right? So if a tank is like really communicative and really like a great decision maker, we'll make them the tank,
right?
If the player's like that. And if someone's really, really good at taking a step back and seeing the whole vision, then maybe we'll make them a support, because we've seen that they've done a good job of that.
And how's the pushback sometimes from the students? Like, obviously it depends on who they are, their demeanor, but I think of a young hockey player who's been a centerman for 10 years of his life, and all of a sudden you're saying, hey, we need you to go back on D. And sometimes they're not thrilled about that. So do you have some tough conversations there if you're having to move people into some different roles?
Yeah, and once again, when you ask these questions, it's funny, because it makes me think of this situation and that situation. And, when you say that, I think about the fact that we really haven't had a ton of pushback on that.
It's good.
Yeah. Well, so the thing is, and the reason I laughed when you asked the question is because everyone wants to be DPS, which is somebody who deals all the damage, gets the most eliminations and things like that.
What does that stand for?
DPS, damage per second, but it just means a damage character. Someone who's out there to try to get lots of damage or just try to eliminate people, right? So that is like the goal scorer.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
The McDavid.
So, yes, everyone wants to be that player. But it is kind of funny, and like now that I think about it, a lot of players, when we say, you seem like you're pretty solid at this role, can you try this hero out and let's see how it goes? We've had a lot of people that have been really adaptable and really open to it, which is great. And it is funny because some of our Pavel Bure types, we will say, have ended up being a damaged person because that's just where their skill set was.
Right.
You know what I mean? I really don't think we had to change a whole bunch.
Right.
But I'm sure that's going to happen in the future.
Right.
We just have to, like you guys would have to in hockey and in other sports, that it's just, this is what we're seeing, and you just got to kind of stick to your guns on it. Right?
I think it's good to see, well, especially at this level, because you like to rotate everyone. It's good to see all the other positions, so that when you say someone really does want to be like the goal scorer, they kind of know how all the other positions should operate.
Yeah. It's kind of like so we literally talked about it this week. We talked about in Rocket League, we were talking about awareness in the game, and we were talking about putting yourself, like we're talking about empathy, talking about putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So we literally had them go through a replay of a Rocket League game from someone else's on their team's perspective. So then the question was, is there anything that you do when you play that's annoying? You know what I mean? Because like when you're looking at that perspective, you're seeing it and you're being like, oh, like why did that guy not jump for that ball? Or it looked like they were going to go, and then they didn't. So then it kind of threw me off. And even though you're not the one controlling it, you still get those feelings when you're watching. Yeah. So we had them go through that so that they could see, okay, this is something that I do that would be annoying if my other teammate was doing it. And maybe annoying isn't the right word, but I could help my teammates out more if I maybe got this habit out of my game, right? So it is good for them for sure to understand and to think about other people, because one of the biggest things when it comes to esports is people blaming somebody else on their team.
So it's like sports in general.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty high in esports.
Actually, anything really, even work sites. Someone they want to point the blame real quick. And so trying to get them to look at themselves and not be overly critical, because there's a yo-yo, or a pendulum, and you could swing too far the other way where it's like, we lost, it's my fault, right? We've had players in the past that, like, in situation where that's come up, where someone's like, it's my fault, and it's just like, I actually have to show them the opposite, where I'm like, not saying that this is somebody else's fault, but like, look at your read here is the same read that I would have done. Right. You're being a little bit too hard on yourself, and when you're really hard on yourself, sometimes you're going to hesitate. And in a game like Rocket League, well, all these games, you have half a second, if that, to think. Right. So it is definitely something that we're hoping that we can help build with esports, because there's a lot of times when people will play. League of Legends is a video game that you have 5 people on your team against another 5-person team, and the games can last over an hour. And if one person's doing a bad job, then everyone loses the game. And so it is famously toxic, because people are just like, they're always like, it's always somebody else's fault. It's always somebody else's fault, right? So to fight back a little bit like on that in my little classroom is another thing I'm pretty big into. I think this leads to my next question. So do you guys use Discord for communication at all?
Yep, we've been using Discord.
So obviously I'm guessing they're joining other servers with people they don't know.
Nope.
Oh, no, never?
No. So they have to, we make sure that like, we make sure that their communication stays in class.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just a safety thing, because we're in schools, right?
I was going to go to that, like the safety with kids, and then the toxicity online it's pretty crazy. Yeah.
So when they play, like in competition and things like that, those are going to have, we're actually, there's a spring season. That's for our different games for Rocket League and Valorant. And what happens there, and in any other competition we do, is that there's a teacher sponsor. There has to be a teacher involved, or an administrator such as myself, that is in communication at all times in the games, making sure that everything is going the way that it should go. So that's a way they're not just playing randoms. They're not going to be, hopefully exposed to any sort of that toxicity, or as little as possible, for sure. So having competition be sanctioned and make sure that there's a teacher sponsor is how we make sure of that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And so if someone gets out of line, how do you I guess, how do you address it? How do you discipline us?
Yeah, so we do have a code of conduct that they sign. We also have an academic code of conduct. So they sign something at the beginning of the year that says if they get suspended from school, they're suspended from the games. Right. That doesn't matter if we're playing like a big tournament game and you get suspended. Unfortunately, you've let down the rest of your team. That's just something that we do not allow. The other thing that we do to hopefully battle a little bit of toxicity outside of our room is if you get banned in game, and unfortunately it's something that has happened, if you get banned in game, you cannot play in our room.
No second tags.
No second tag. No, you have to play on your main account. Yeah. And that is why when I run tournaments and things like that for Alberta Scholastic Esports Association, we have them give us their Epic tags or whatever their school tag that they use. And if that ever gets banned, they can't just use another account. They're not in, because that's we need them to have to be acting outside of the game or outside of the school the way that they need to be, right? So just another way for us to make sure that the toxicity and everything like that isn't something that we have to deal with.
And who decides if someone gets banned? Like, is that you guys monitoring it, or like which entity will make that call?
The game itself usually bans them.
Okay.
So you can get reported in games and things like that. Say just like poor sportsmanship and things like that. Right. If you do that, people can report you. And if the game looks into it and finds that there's evidence of that, then you can get banned. And then what will happen is when they go to log on, it won't let them play. Right. So when I look over and I see somebody on a different tag or something like that, then you need to log into the other one. Oh, that one's been banned. Well, then you don't get to play. So that specific thing hasn't happened. And I think we might have had one ban over 3 years that we had to deal with, but that was even in class, if we're playing games, they're not able to go play games. They can do like drills and things like that. Right. But until that ban is lifted, which can sometimes be, a couple weeks, then they're not able to play.
Right.
So and it's usually hard to get, like, you have to do something kind of stupid.
Yeah. Or like they can even get banned for, like, if you're talking about like a small thing, if they leave games early or
like quitting.
Yeah. So they can do that. That's still, is it as egregious as some sort of, behavior offense? It's not. But if they're banned for that, then they're banned for that.
It's still poor sportsmanship.
Yeah. You still have a responsibility. I know it sounds lame, but like, you still have a responsibility to the people that you're playing with, right? Even if they are randoms on the internet.
There's still 5 other people spending their time, committing to that time to play. Yep. And if you disrupt it, then the whole game gets kind of messed up. Yeah.
Now, I don't know if I'm describing this correctly, but if a student wants to go home and practice more, do you encourage them to do that on the same account, or can they do their additional practice on a separate account? And potentially, operate a slightly different way, or are the two very intertwined?
I think generally we've been, it's a good question. Generally we've had them just play on their own accounts.
Yeah.
Kids sometimes get in the habit of like making a whole bunch of different accounts and having Smurf accounts and like all these sorts of things. A Smurf is when you're a high level and then you make a lower level account just so you can like dummy people.
Okay. Hustler.
Yeah. So we discourage that. The other thing is if they're practicing on their main account at home, and occasionally we will use their in-game ranks to kind of, as it's not the be-all end-all. I literally put that on their report cards. It's not the only thing that we look at, but a rank is a way for us to kind of get an idea of what their development is, right? Sure. So when they play competitive, if they're gaining ranks, then that's kind of showing me that they're gaining ability through the year, right? So.
And if you're splitting that up on 2 different accounts, it might be harder to get an accurate gauge of the development.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons we do that. And it just also kind of encourages their being on their best behavior.
Gotcha.
We talk about screen time a lot.
Yeah.
So this obviously leads to increased screen time, obviously. I guess how much practice do you encourage, I guess, outside of school hours? Like, how do you balance that?
I mean, we just talk about balances. Am I going to give a number to somebody? I'm not going to give a number to them. We do talk about, I know Overwatch specifically has talked about There was a coach from the States who talked about this is how many hours you need to, or the pros put in every week. And we talk about, that's not going to be where we're at. We're not pros right now. We need to go to a lower level of that. We encourage them if they want to play after school hours, then great. If you want to do that, we've had multiple people who only play during our time and then on the weekends, because the rest of the week is for their academic time, and we absolutely appreciate that. There's no pressure on our end of things for them to be playing anymore, but we definitely preach balance. Make sure the academics is going well. If you have outside, physical activity, other team sports and things like that, make sure you're giving yourself to that as well. But if it's a passion of theirs, then it's something that they should explore, right? So yeah, it's a tough question to give you a number on, but there should be signs in your life if you're out of balance, right? If you're kind of dropping your spot on your hockey team, if your grades are dropping, if you're not hanging out with your friends as much as possible, then you need to maybe make an adjustment to something else in your life to make sure those things are in balance.
Oh. Definitely case by case sometimes.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
There's some, like, you think about the stories of, like, this is where it gets difficult, right? You think about the stories of Larry Bird, where he would, and I hope I'm getting it right, that this was him that did this, that he would go shoot free throws at the court by his house, and he wouldn't go home until he hit 10 in a row. And not only was it 10 in a row, they all had to be swishes.
Right.
So sometimes he'd be out there. Is that obsessive? 100% that's obsessive.
For sure.
But he's celebrated as one of the greatest players and all those sorts of things, right? So it's different things for different people.
Yeah.
For him, that's what worked. And obviously he's well regarded in what he did. But if you were to look at that one act, you would be like, he's being obsessive about that. Right. Yeah. And is that healthy? I think we can all say that that's probably not healthy.
Yes. Yeah.
But, and things get turned up a notch when it's esports, right? Mm-hmm. Someone sees that as basketball, or, a cross-country runner that's just always running and always running. That's still unhealthy. They might be hurting their body like a ton, right? But when it's esports, sometimes it gets the stigma of the screen time and everything like that, which is a valid thing, of course. Yeah. But because it's esports, sometimes people are like, well, they're just like wasting their time.
Right.
Well, maybe that guy or girl who spends a lot of time playing that, maybe they are the next Larry Bird, and this is what their life passion is, right? I would still have even thought, and far be it from me to tell Larry Bird anything. I would say maybe mix that in a few times. Maybe you could dial that back a little bit. But
sure, yeah. Well, maybe let's talk a little bit about, because we were talking about this a little bit before we got on air here, just about, it sounds like there's some scholarship opportunities. Like the whole landscape of esports is growing rapidly into places that a lot of us don't understand. So again, there's that balance. You don't want to be sacrificing your health, but there are some additional opportunities past high school and even past post grad, where there's professional leagues, there's all sorts of these different things. So I mean, I know with hockey, obviously sometimes that can be a big motivator for people, is not just the dream of the NHL, but the the money and all these different things. And I think we'd all agree that's not the healthy motivator that you want. But I mean, it is a reason to potentially put in, especially if you have the underlying passion. This isn't necessarily something that's going to stop. There are opportunities to make this a career. Absolutely.
I've actually, I just had a conversation about this last night with an esports professional from a university. We were just talking about like the landscape of things, for sure. People would be shocked at how many scholarships are available for esports players. Half scholarships, there's full ride scholarships for, esports athletes. What'll happen a lot of times is, at this point, and this is kind of a major talking point, and this is where you're kind of seeing this is where you can gauge where esports is getting, is that, are you getting a lot of scholarships from like the University of Michigan, or are you getting it from, Florida or any of those like big state schools? Those don't seem to be happening quite yet. What you get a lot of the times is schools will use their esports teams as a way of publicizing what they're doing. Does that mean it's not a benefit to the esports players? Of course, it's still a benefit to the esports players if they get their education paid for, right? But you'll have your, Northwood out of Michigan. In Canada, St. Clair is a massive school in Windsor. And they've been the best in Canada for quite a while, right? Keano up in Fort McMurray and Bow Valley College in Calgary. Like those are the schools that are giving out money for scholarships. Whereas places like University of Alberta, UBC, places like that, they have really strong clubs, but they don't have varsity teams. They aren't giving out scholarships. So what I think you'll see in the future here is those schools will start to see the value in it. And you'll start seeing those bigger schools start giving scholarships out, right? Because sometimes it's a balance too, so if I have a student, and I have a student, our first graduate's going to be next year. And, when you have the conversation with them about what their plan is for the future, if the plan is, I need to get an engineering degree and I want to go into my engineering degree right away, but I also like esports, we have to have the conversation of, is the engineering degree the number one thing? And if you don't want to take any years off or anything like that, then maybe you go right into U of A and you go into their club. Right. If you want to take a year off or you want to get a certificate, or there are definitely some schools that'll have some degrees and things like that you can take for sure. And then their esports program might be much stronger. So you're balancing that just like you would if you were a football player, right? Like if you could, let's say you could be a red shirt at Harvard and you could get part of your schooling paid for, or you could be starting at the University of Florida. Right. Well, University of Florida is a pathway to the NFL probably, whereas Harvard is maybe a little bit less. Yeah. I think, I don't know. Oh, sorry.
For football purpose.
Yeah. For sure. You know what I mean? So you have those conversations where it's like, what comes first is the academics. Do you want that Harvard degree or do you want the path to the NFL? Yeah. So we have to have those same conversations in esports. And actually to take it as like a positive, that's kind of a fun conversation to have. It's fun that we can actually talk about the millions of dollars that are available in scholarships, right? Like for esports.
So are these kids getting recruited, or is it up to me to apply to the institution? Hey, I'm an esports athlete. I want to go to your school and I'd like to get funding. I
think like other sports, and once again, not a massive expert on other sports, there's kind of a mixture of the two, right? So let's just say, the Alberta Esports Championship was last year in May. At that event, there's streams that go on. There's a record of what team won, all those sorts of things. So those people might get phone calls from people that'll say, hey, we saw you at this, and they can recruit them that way. I don't think there's much for as many rules as there might be for NCAA and things like that. But there's also places like, I believe it's called Stay Plugged In, where you can provide your rank, you can provide video reviews of your gameplay, and you can put it out there, and then people can contact you through there. So there's different avenues for people to go. There's more passive ways of waiting for somebody to come to you. There's more aggressive ways of putting yourself out there and Stay Plugged In. I believe you can even contact schools because I think you can in any sport, but there's definitely different paths for different people, right? Yeah. Like anything else too, if you're like a super high-end player, they'll find you.
Yeah. Right? And are you getting recruited for a specific game, or just is it like your general average score in each game?
No. It'll be for a specific game. So the only thing I would say is, your FPS games, your those sorts of games, if there's a new one coming down the pipe, there might be some people who I guess they would show that their aptitude in another game might transfer over. But even then, I believe that you're generally recruited for that game. So you've showed a propensity in that game, and that's why they want you.
I guess how many different games would be played at the collegiate level?
As far as the way that I like to describe it is I call things tier 1 games. So a tier 1 game to me would be a game that has a college scholarship, at least like a varsity team that exists for it. And there's other games that would be like tier 2 games that maybe like other colleges play, but there's not really like a super big pathway for it. So a tier 1 game for me, Valorant, Overwatch, Rocket League, League of Legends, things like that. Whereas, and I'm someone who watches this, who's an esports person, might jump on me for this, but like tier 2 would be like a Fortnite or Smash Bros, which are great games, but there's not a huge pathway for the Nintendo, any Nintendo game, because Nintendo, there's not really like a pro scene as much as biggest prize pools and things like that. And so as far as games that would be in that tier 1, it would be like probably like a 10 game sort of thing. I'm just kind of wildly stabbing at that number. But Valorant always comes up. Overwatch always comes up. Rocket League always comes up. League of Legends. And then some teams will have like Call of Duty or Rainbow Six Siege but it's there's just only so much space.
Yeah.
You know
There's
what I mean?
so many games.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's one of the like interesting things about esports is I very much love hockey, and there's no way that I'm using this as an insult, but like hockey has hockey coaches and goalie coaches, and maybe you have like, you might have a power skating person, you might have a skills coach, all those sorts of things. But the coaching is generally, you'll be coaching hockey and there'll be hockey coaches 100 years from now teaching the same game.
Right.
Whereas we might not be coaching Rocket League next year. So I've built up all of this coaching material and I like have a bunch of knowledge in that game, and no college has it anymore.
Right.
And no one's playing it anymore. The developer stopped supporting it.
Yeah.
And I just, all that stuff maybe doesn't go in the trash because I'll have some sentimental value, but I'm going to have to learn another game.
Mm-hmm.
Our kids also have to learn another game. So our Rocket League players, what are they going to do, right? So one of the big philosophies of our program is, yes, we put them into those games, but we're trying to train them how to train, if that makes sense. So we're trying to let them know. So we explore random games, games that aren't our 3 that we play all the time. And we kind of show them, this is how we learn a new game. This is where we find new assets to develop. This is how you learn how to be, play this role in a game and all that kind of stuff. So that when the new game comes out, because I guarantee you in 10 years, we're not talking about the same 3 games, that you can adapt to that. And some of them are in grade 7 right now. By the time they're in grade 12 and graduating, they're going to need to know how to play another game at a high level. Right. So yeah, part of the philosophy is definitely for them to be adaptable and, so that they can do different roles and they can play different games, right? So if you're an IGL in Valorant, you end up being a captain, you show the leadership, you've shown enough mechanical ability in an FPS game that when the new FPS game comes out, that you can do that and you can be a leader in that game too.
Right. That's super interesting. Adaptability is definitely a theme that's come up in a lot of our conversations. And, as you go through your hockey journey, for example, you're on the power play 1 year, you're not. Now you're having to kill penalties. Now you're on the 4th line and you're having to hit everybody. Like, you have to be willing to adapt. It's just so few and far between to be the first line centerman for your whole career. I mean, It happens. The McDavids, the Crosbys of the world. But I mean, even Crosby now at the end of his career, he wasn't playing nearly as much as he did 10 years ago on Team Canada, right? So he's had to stay positive and learn to adapt to be able to hang in there.
Absolutely.
But the contrast of, like you said, hockey should be minus a few rule changes. I mean, we've seen the game evolve, but it's going to be generally the same in all likelihood in 100 years.
Yeah, you're going to skates and have a puck.
Right. Where in esports, like that's a drastic potential. Your bread and butter game might not be relevant anymore. So it's interesting to see how that immediately changes your lens to being like, okay, these underlying skills that make me a good gamer, and a lot of what we try to focus on with hockey is like, especially for the younger kids, focus on being a good athlete so you have that foundation. You need to still be a good hockey player, but don't forget about all the bricks you need to have underneath there.
Absolutely.
I mean, in esports, with that fluidness of the games, like you really have to have that perspective.
Absolutely. And so like, remember I was talking before about the tracking the data of that, it's called AIM Labs. So you track the data. We have three specific drills that they go through, and we track the scores in each of those drills. So we've specifically chosen those 3. They're all keyboard and mouse, so you're not using controller for that.
You never use controllers?
Only in Rocket League.
Okay.
But in except for one kid who's really good at keyboard and mouse, and we just kind of like, you can go play that way. But we got the 3 drills because they do 3 separate things. So the first drill is this one that's called sphere track, and it's just about how well you can track this ball that's always moving on the screen. So how quickly can you react to it? How smooth can you be? All that sort of thing, right? So the higher the score, the more time you're on the ball. That's the way that one works. And then we have another one that is just as fast as you can click the little circles. Right. So that's how fast you are with the clicking and how you can react to, they're all in like a really tight space. So that's just how quickly you can click and work in a small area. And then the last one is this one where you're doing, as soon as you shoot a ball, another ball pops up on the screen. So you got to flick over to it. Right. So those are 3 different movements that we think are integral to being an FPS player, being a keyboard and mouse player. And so we think that when Valorant goes away, when Overwatch goes away, if they do, if you still have ability in those 3 skills, then you'll be, and you're still working on those 3 skills, then you'll be viable. Right. So that's why that AIM Labs thing, that thing that we're doing, or something like it, should persist even beyond those games' lifespans.
Do you guys have the ability to create and develop the practice games or practice programs similar as like a hockey coach designing his own drill?
Yeah. So, I mean, the ones that we just spoke about, the drills that we were talking about, that we were tracking the score of, those ones, I mean, we made a little like, a playlist so that they could do those sorts of things. So you can do that. We haven't created them ourselves, but as far as drills and things go, we definitely have drills outside of that AIM Labs thing when we're doing with each of the games. So like I said, I focus a lot on Rocket League, and so there's things called training packs in Rocket League that you can have the kids go through, and so it's working on a specific drill. You can actually create those yourselves, but man, the community is amazing. They've made them for us. Cool. And so I'll literally have a practice plan where I'll say, okay, we're going to do the warm-up today. And the warm-up, I have specific things that they're doing in free play, which is where you're just driving around with the car. And I have specific drills that they're doing in those that'll work on specific mechanics. And then I'll say, I want you to do this training pack, and this is your goal for the training pack. And then we're going to get the thing that we're working on, we're going to bring it into some gameplay in a casual setting, and then we're going to bring it into a more competitive setting, right? So we can have practice plans just like any other sport. Different games are easier. Rocket League is the reason it was used as an example is because it's super easy. There's lots of assets. There's lots of things for us to do. Some games are a little more difficult to create your own drills within. But we do our best to do that. Like I said, we were working specifically on pacing the other day, so we worked on drills where we put people at a disadvantage. So we had the defenders had 5 players and the attacking team had 3 players, and then we asked the defenders to change their pace up to push these 3. You should have an advantage, so you should push that pacing. So that's kind of a drill that we've done when we've worked on things like clearing sites. So you walk into a site and you don't know where people are. They might be behind boxes, they might be whatever. So you need to know how to clear a site. So we'll play hide and seek. We'll have people and you have to sit in the corner and you're not allowed to move until that person's, you're not allowed to move at all. You're allowed to shoot if the person comes around you. But the idea being those other people have the advantage if they clear quickly and they do a good job of it. So that's how we can work through some things, and those are drills that we can do for the game. And then we'll say, now it's time for us to go into a game. We're going to record that game, and we're specifically going to talk about your clearing the site in that video review.
Right. Do you find, I know, again, contrasting it to hockey, and I think it's awesome, but the vast majority of kids would prefer to play a hockey game versus to do another practice.
Yeah.
Is that the same in esports, and B, how do you try to strike that balance between play and practice?
Yes, it's the same.
Yeah. Not surprising.
Not surprising. No, it is definitely a challenge at times. We're lucky we have a bunch of kids who do want to get better, which is great. But it's also incumbent on us, just the same way as it is you when you make a practice plan. Yeah. Yes, there's times of work, and there's times that you're just like, I know that this is like not watching paint dry, but this is not exactly what you want to do. Right. It's incumbent on you to make the rest of the practice a little more entertaining, or like still get what you need to get done. But if you can make it, if you can gamify it, if you can make it something that's a little more enjoyable for them, then you're going to have a little bit more success. So we were talking earlier about demolitions in Rocket League and how that can be, something we're working on. You can really put the other team out and you can get them upset. So what we've done is we have we made up this game mode where we're playing 3-on-3, and if you get demoed, then you have to leave your team. So you leave your team, so they're 3-on-2. So then you can completely gain an advantage by doing it. We just call it like the demolition game. And every time I bring that up, even though it's all about them demoing in the game without getting out of position, and even though it's like technically a drill, every time I bring it up, they're like, yeah. They just love it, you know? So you can find those ones, and those are, you know, the successes that are, you know, sometimes can be a little few and far between, right? But trying to find something that actually makes them excited to work on things is the best.
It sounds like golf, because like just hitting balls to nothing, especially in the winter, is kind of boring. So I know when I run, or when I go, my plans, it's like first part's like technical work, then it's, you know, like target practice or something, and it's like, then how can I gamify it after? So the similarities in coaching are very, like, it works for everything, I think.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, when we were younger, I think that we probably all had a little more traditional coaches, but the ones that you kind of remember are the ones where you're like, man, that was like, that guy was always smiling. We got to like try some new things that I've never tried before. And like, you remember those coaches a little bit more, right? I mean, we always also remember the ones that you're just like, man, that guy knew his stuff, and you know, I got better and all that sorts of thing. But sometimes that's even at the end of the season or a few years down the line, you're like, oh, that was a really good coach. I should have maybe stuck around a little bit more.
That brings us back to Peacock, where I remember we would start a lot of times with like 3-puck or something. We always like start with a game, do something, then we usually end with some sort of game at the end. So it made the whole thing go really smooth. But I have a question. Equipment wise, so I know with like golf or even like hockey, like I would hate the idea of playing with like different equipment every time. Like, are they bringing their own keyboard, mouse? Their setup is always the same. So in our program, like in hockey and lacrosse, they're expected to bring their own equipment, so they have to provide that themselves. So we do have options for people. We brought in a few computers and built a few computers, and we've actually made those available for rent/lease at our school. But even then, we would ask them to bring their own headsets for sure, and if they want to bring their own keyboard, mouse, because those feel the most personal. A monitor to me it's the thing I'm viewing it on. As long as it's the size that I want, I don't really care. If you give me a mouse that's really small, it like literally will cause me pain because I have big hands, and like if it's like really arched, there's just like certain things don't slide the way I want them to, like all those sorts of things. So yes, it is very much personal, what people bring. And for our guys, they need to bring their own equipment for sure. We always have backups and things like that, because things happen. Break or something.
But it's actually kind of an exciting thing that we've been doing this year. I mean, maybe it's exciting for me, is that we've been doing these things that we call like Let's Talks, and we'll go through. So we've done a few of them. We did one on keyboards. So we kind of explained to them, hey, when you're asking at Christmas, and because they all want keyboards and they all want, you know, new mice and things like that. We went through what we consider the like viable esports keyboards, as far as the format of them, the different switches that you can have, all those sorts of things. And we went through it, so they're armed with a little bit more information. We have a thing in the class that has all the different switches, not all of the different switches, but like 100 different switches, so they can feel what it feels like. Because sometimes they're just going into a store, or they're just buying it off online, and because it's got a certain brand name, they get it, and then they get home and they're like, I hate the way that this sounds. I hate this sounds.
Their parents have no idea.
They have no idea. And it's like the travel of the switch matters, like how far you have to press it down to engage it, all these sorts of things, right? So we went through that with them as much as we could, and some of them maybe they gloss over because they don't really care, maybe, but some of them I'm sure that they gain some knowledge, so that the next time that they go by, they'll have something, right? So, and we've gone through mice before, you know, we have one plan for, you know, how to clean your equipment, how to maintain it, all those sorts of things, right? So it is very personal, and I know that it's the same thing with hockey and with golf. I'm sure if your golf club was an inch longer or an inch shorter, it would feel like
grips to feel a certain way and stuff like that. Like, and it's like we're talking like one wrap of tape. And that's like, to the average person, that's nothing. But it's one wrap of tape.
Once you get to the point where every little thing kind of matters to you because you're at that level, I can completely see how like a different keyboard to me is just like I don't know how you could do it.
I guess how often would you need to replace equipment? Like I know controllers will get stick drift or whatever. Like with mice and keyboards, like how long do you expect? I guess for like, especially for like a new parent that might be getting into this with their kid, like how often do you think you might have to replace stuff?
Controllers would be depending on what you get. So I'm going to get nerdy for a second. So stick drift, there's a thing called Hall effect switches now, or Hall effect sticks. Those will last a little bit longer. But controllers seem to, like, for me, they only last like 6 months or.
What brand do you typically?
Well, I don't want to. Okay.
Is there a certain brand?
I'm like, you might not get them as a sponsor next. So there's like the standard Xbox controller.
The standard one. Do they ever use like the ones with paddles?
They absolutely do.
Yeah, okay.
Some of the kids do that. I would specifically get those, and I've tried out a few ones. That's actually one of the Let's Talk we did about the different controllers and the way that they feel and the different price points and all that sort of thing. My controllers will generally, they're only going to be lasting me like 6 months or a year because I play them more often than people. I'm in class all the time using them, and like they'll go through that. So I don't think if your kid comes to you after 6 months and says like this button isn't working anymore, that it should be like, what are you doing to that controller? Because sometimes it just happens, and unfortunately things aren't built the way that they were before. As far as keyboard and mice go, that they should last longer to me, especially like a keyboard. You can actually every 6 months you could take all the keys off and you can clean it out, not with water, oh my god, with compressed air and all those sorts of things, so that should make it last a little bit longer. And there's really just, besides the switches, they don't generally have like a ton of moving parts, so they should be okay. And mice similarly. So mice, if you're somebody who gets mad and taps it every time that you get upset, or worse than taps it, maybe it doesn't last as long. But even then, I would say that those things should be lasting you at least a year, and probably more than that. I've had mice last me a ton of time. I've had headsets last me like 6-7 years. Wow. Those sorts of things. But other ones will they'll just wear and tear.
But just know, like, there is equipment cost involved.
Absolutely. There is, especially at the highest levels, right? Like people want people want the highest thing. You can spend $250 on a mouse, right? Wow. You could spend more than that, I'm sure. Keyboards can get up into like almost to the thousands. They're like, those are more like, what's the word? Like, not boutique, but people who are like really, really interested in keyboards and they want to make them perfect. There's like that. But like, there's one, like the Hall effect ones, the new ones, they'll be in like the $200, $250 up to $400 range, like a hockey stick. Yeah. But they'll last you longer than a hockey stick, hopefully. So people can expect, if they want to get to this, my kid, I might buy him $300 skates. But if he was really like could tell all the differences in skates and he was playing at a super high level and he needed that extra little boost, then what are skates? You can get kids skates for like $1,200 now. You know what I mean? So there is that range when it comes to esports equipment as well.
What about the chair too? I know that's a big thing as well, because you're sitting down for an extended period of time. Do you have your athletes, do they bring their own chair to school, or maybe competitions?
No, we brought the chairs in for them. So with us, it's more, once again, I could go off on this a little bit. Some of those big gaming chairs, whether you see them and the people are streaming and then they're behind them, I don't like those as much because they don't provide as much support. Right. I want to be supported when I'm playing. And there's been a bit of a push for that for like esports athletes to move to more of like the office style chair. Those have been shown to just be a little more supportive. In our classroom, we do have gaming style chairs. They're just a little bit more comfortable. They're not like the big ones that come up around your head kind of thing, but they're like quilted and a little bit softer, and so they're just a little more comfortable when they're in the class. So
we might have to look into some of those chairs for here.
Next podcast, you guys will just have I think they're called secret.
Well, you know what? We need a sponsor, so we're a big esports
gaming chair
here.
Absolutely.
You guys had both just mentioned, parents in a couple different ways in terms of helping with the equipment and those type of things. I'm curious, Bouch, having coached, minor hockey for several years. I'm thinking about it for the first time, obviously here, but I think, in the hockey space, you have a lot of involvement from parents sometimes, especially when the parents have previously been involved in hockey, because they understand the game to a certain level, right? And that's totally understandable. You have the Oilers constantly on TV. The NHL is always being talked about. The money that the top players in the world keeps going up. Like, there's all these different factors for it. Not saying it's right or wrong, but the involvement seems to be kind of increasing as the years have gone by.
Yeah.
Do you find with esports being a little bit more, and I could be wrong about this, I'm sure you have some parents that have been avid gamers that understand it and are probably maybe a little bit more in tune with what's going on.
Yep.
But then, you know, do you also have a number of kids that are kind of the first of the family to really be doing this, and then the parents subsequently aren't really as involved because they just don't understand it as much?
Yeah, so I would say it's mostly the latter.
Yeah.
That most of the parents that are, you know, of our student athletes, they're being supportive of what would be a new passion in their family.
Yeah.
And so we do have a few family members who have seemed to be quite handy when it comes to like computers and things like that. And definitely we talk to some of the parents, and some of them play and all that kind of stuff as well. But as far as like the way that I like in my mind, I'm thinking about everyone in the stands in hockey is an expert in their minds anyways. And I'm in the stands right now, so I think I'm an expert. But there's much less of that at esports. Yeah. I think even casual gamers, if you want to say that, the jump from casual gamer to coach is quite a big leap. And so I don't think we've had any feedback on, why did you guys use that execute when you were on Valorant? Like, why was that your play instead of this one? 0% that's happened. I actually, you know, eventually, not that I'm actively inviting this, but like it might be a sign of like, once we get to the point where it's a little more ubiquitous in our society that like esports is on TV all the time or something like that, like that'll actually maybe when I do get that, well, we saw that, you know, NRG or something was using this execute, like why wouldn't you think it worked with us? Like I would love that conversation, you know what I mean? But at this point we don't get that. We have a lot of supportive parents. When do I drop them off? When do I pick them up? Oh, you need them as a sub? Absolutely. We'll make sure that they're there. Like we get a lot of that. So, which is perfect.
In terms of parents here, I guess what would the startup cost be like if say someone wants to really take this to the next level? Because obviously you need like a PC, like, you know, the monitors, like the right response time, size, controller. I guess what would you kind of need to get started?
If we're talking like just exploring this as an option, just like anything else, I probably wouldn't say go out and buy all this stuff. Try to find some place where you can try it. So this is where I get to plug. If somebody wanted to do a shadow day at Vimy Esports, they could come try it. We have computers for them to try. So that would be one way for you to figure it out. Hopefully somebody that you know has something where they could try it out and do that. Console is a great way for people to get involved early. So
What's that?
Console as in like PlayStation or Xbox or whatever. Yeah, sorry.
Amateur question.
That's all right. You know what? Somebody else would have asked that question.
No, it's good.
So that would be a great way for people to get involved, right? So Rocket League is on, well, every console and PC. So they could try Rocket League out or
There's
something like that.
cross-play on that, I'm assuming.
There absolutely is. Yeah. We play in tournaments where some people are on Xbox, some people are, I really don't think they're on the Switch, but there's other games that people are on, or other consoles. So that's a way for them to get into it without dropping a whole bunch of money. If they're at the point where, hey, we're showing some talent here and we want to kind of like foster that. So a good gaming laptop will run you somewhere around like $1,500 range. I mean, it could go up to like $4,000, but you could get something that's very much playable for $1,500. You know, you don't have to get a keyboard and a separate keyboard to start. And even then, some of them can be like in the $100 range. Mice you can get for like $100, and then a headset for like, you can get decent ones for like $40 actually. But if you want to get something that's going to last a little while, like even up to like the $100, you're going to get a good one. So, you know, you're probably saying if you wanted to get absolutely everything and you wanted to take the next step from console, that you're looking in like the $2,000 range.
Who's developing these games? You mentioned Rocket League and League of Legends. Like, is it EA, or is it, you know, someone that's dedicated to making kind of these style of games for esports?
So I would say not EA. EA is very much sports related, and I would put them, you remember how I said tier 1 for like scholarships and things like that? I'd put the sports games in the tier 2, maybe even like one step down from that, because there just isn't very much.
It's very niche.
Yeah.
Yes, very niche.
Especially with the North American sports, because they might not all translate to like
Yeah, so FIFA might be big, and there's actually college programs that have FIFA teams, this is why I would put them maybe in like more the tier 2, as far as that goes. And that's not an insult to any of those games. It's just the landscape.
That's the way it is.
Right.
Yeah. As far as like the tier 1 titles, those are different developers. So Epic Games would be pretty big. They're the people that make Fortnite and Rocket League. Psyonix was the first team developer that made Rocket League, but Epic bought them. So Epic is a big one. Riot Games makes League of Legends and Valorant, and so they're big in the scene. They're about to come out with a fighting game that might actually be an esport, which is interesting. And then your Activision, so that's your Overwatch, Call of Duty, all those.
Tony
sorts of
Hawk.
things. Tony Hawk. Man. We didn't even talk about Tony Hawk. And when you talk about my gaming memories, Tony Hawk is, oh my, I've spent a while on that. And then to see my kids pick up that game.
Nice.
That's a good one. So
Are they still making new ones of Tony Hawk?
they're doing a lot of like remasters
Okay.
Yeah.
of things. There's actually some really interesting ones that are like simulators,
Yeah.
like skateboarding simulator ones.
Yeah.
Those are pretty neat.
That's awesome. Well, I think we're going to have to start trying to wind up. So maybe let's just kind of finish with talking about the pro landscape. I mean, that's obviously something I kind of see the odd social post. I'm hearing about how the prize pools in some of these events just keeps growing. But
You can gamble on it now too.
yeah, you can bet on who's winning and lose or whatever, who's going to win. So just curious to get your thoughts on sort of what's happened with the evolution.
And maybe
of the
touch
game.
on like streaming, how that's a big
Sure.
Yeah.
venue
for
for
sure.
streaming as well.
I'll go with pro first. Like hockey, I think that can be the dream. And the hope is that we create an environment where our kids can have, if they have pro aspirations, they can develop into that for sure. But it's also the 0.001% of all players will get to do that. Yeah. There's way more opportunities now as far as that goes. There's people making a decent amount of money. One of my favorite games in the world is called Dota, DOTA. It's like an acronym. Anyways, I believe it was 2018 or 2019. The prize pool for that was $45 million. So the top team walked away with, I think, $20 million between the 5 of them.
Wow.
So
Not bad.
when you start dropping those numbers, I remember I was on Gregor or something, and you could kind of audibly hear the like pause when I give them that number, right? And when I talk to parents, they're like, "Really?" And there's a lot of $1 million tournaments because that's just $1 million as a point, right? Yeah. And so pro exists. I think esports is viewed as this behemoth, but there's ups and downs when it comes to that, especially within games. Something specific I can think of is that Overwatch game. There was an Overwatch League up until last year, I believe, and then it shut down for a little while, and then I think they revamped it and put it back out. And so, at one point that was the biggest thing. It was on TV. It was like, I think it might have even been on ESPN or something like that. They really tried to make a push for that, and then that's kind of scaled back, right? And then other things blow up and they get bigger, and like right now Valorant's the big thing, right? And in a couple of years it might not be. 10 years ago, or not 10 years ago, but 6-7 years ago, Fortnite was a lot bigger, and now that's kind of waned, right? So it kind of goes back to the adaptability thing where it's if you're really, really good at Valorant, then maybe Counter-Strike becomes the next big thing, and it's a very similar game. Maybe you can move over to that. And there are people who have moved in between, right? So yeah, it's always going to be a dream, and it's a fun dream to have, and it's more accessible than it's ever been, for sure. But it's also good to keep in mind that that like hockey, like other sports, maybe for a lot of people, the idea might be get some schooling paid for, see where it goes, right? When it comes to streaming, that's obviously another opportunity that people have. That is another way that people make money, even people that don't play an esport per se. I actually enjoy watching people who do speed running of games, which is just trying to finish a certain game as fast as you can, or very, very difficult games and things like that. I like watching those people, and some of those people make tons of money, right? But once again, that's the 0.001%. If you were to ask a bunch of grade 5 kids what their career aspirations are, you might get 90% of them saying, and especially the boys, would be, I want to be a YouTuber. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And just think about how many people want to do that, and the percentage of them that actually get to make money.
Oh, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Or even some.
Well, I know being
an influencer, right?
I know doing it's a thing. I didn't know there was actually like an aspiration to that early.
Yeah, there's a lot of kids.
wow.
And maybe I'm overshooting it with 90%.
But a high percentage.
But a high percentage
Yeah,
of
I
kids
believe
want
it,
to be YouTubers. They think it's like the coolest thing in the world. And like, man, some of those people that are making tons of money, making videos. Not just making videos. It seems like it might be difficult, but there's a lot of kids that really.
Do you guys include any of that into your class? Like maybe like film, like how to edit stuff and like speaking.
So
that way?
we would like to do more. So that's like a really good question, and it is something that we want to do more. We think that there's an opportunity for our high school students to get a little bit more into that. Maybe they could actually what they call shoutcast our games for like a junior high teams. That would be a really cool opportunity, and we want to start getting into that. For now, our high school student athletes, they have to do their credits through us, and so they do a digital film and media through us. It's just kind of tailored to video games. So we've actually gone, and the whole group went to developers, a local developer called Beamdog, and they went and they saw a game get developed. We talked to a bunch of different HR people, all those sorts of things. And so a part of the digital film and media is talking about building games and different aspects of it. So that is, we do like a whole bunch of career exploration things. That's one of the things we think is amazing about esports, is that there's so many different pathways. You can be a pro gamer, you could be a coach, you could be a nutritionist, a sports psychologist, but then you could also build games, make music for games. Like we
build the equipment too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have a lot of guest speakers who we get to come into the class, and we had a professor from university in New York City, and he is an esports professor, and as well he's written many studies on esports, and we had him come in and talk about just esports in the academic space, right? And he told them, these are the courses you need to take, this is where you need to start getting your learning, and if you're interested in it, he's like, I can tell you, he's like, brought up a page on, he's just like, I can tell you right now that I just looked, and there's like 20 new jobs today about esports in universities across United States. Like he just kind of gave them the path of what they want to do, and that's the way that we provide our career explorations, is more very broad. We're hoping that something sticks with somebody, because instead of, I could just do like Python programming with them, and then they could all be Python programmers at the end, and one kid might have enjoyed that the whole time. Whereas if I do it this way, we're at least showing them the idea that there's so many different careers that they can do. And beyond that, how many light bulbs have gone off over the 6 years that they've been there, right?
We're not only developing esport athletes, we're developing humans.
That's the goal.
More than just that. Yeah.
And in terms of, you had that hypothetical earlier in the interview of the student who's graduating high school, they want to go into engineering, but they want to keep the esports going. For a lot of sports, not all, but a lot of sports, you have a small window of opportunity while you're young to make it pro. Does that concern exist in esports? Like, do you have a better opportunity if you're pro at 18 versus, you work for 10 years?
Your thumbs get old.
Yeah, you try to be a pro at 28 or 32. Like, is there something there?
We might need to stop this and do a whole nother podcast just on this. So it's a very interesting topic. Absolutely. So just to give you some insight, and I may get these numbers not exactly right, at the Rocket League World Championship, the average age of a pro was 16 years old. Like the oldest player was like 24 or something like that at that tournament. So it's that game is skewed younger. Valorant, the average age I believe was 21 or 22, and the oldest was more like 29 or 30. So different games skew to different ages. I can't tell you the science behind that, but I can just tell you what the data is on those games. So we're in a very unique position where there may be the opportunity that a kid comes through our program who's actually at the highest level when they're in high school, right? So it's about how do we make sure that person finds the path that they need to. And then beyond that, for the lion's share of people, then it's like there is the opportunity to get schooling paid for, even if you're not, child prodigy, that sort of thing. There are lots of 22, 24, 25-year-old college students who are getting their schooling paid for when it comes to that. That's so it is very interesting because, I'm also interested in the hockey side of things, right? Where, what do they say? the prime is for hockey, for forward in hockey, 25, 26.
It's gone down recently.
Yeah.
Right? With speed becoming such a priority in the game.
Yeah. Whereas what is it for goalie? I remember that the goalie was like, we're pushing 30 for prime.
Yeah.
Right. So there's even that within that sport.
Yeah.
Right. It's just they don't push down to 16 years old. No one's in their prime at 16. Right. They need to develop into, man strength and things like that. Right. So, or, just adult strength for the female side of the game. Right. So, it is an interesting topic to think about esports, how young it can skew. And I wonder if that data continues that way, or because of training techniques and things like that, and because people are developing, through colleges and things like that, if that starts skewing up a little bit, or if that actually is the prime for gaming, right? And what is the science behind it? Why would a game like Rocket League be 16 years old, whereas Valorant be 22 years old as the average? Right. Is it anything to, like, they both require quick twitch, right? And arguably, I feel like Valorant might need a little bit more. So why is it?
Yeah,
I don't know. Is it more that the Valorant game requires more strategy, and that's like a little bit more maturity that you have to build?
Right.
I don't know. Interesting questions, anyways.
Well, and especially as this sort of initial generation gets older, like are some of these 16 to 24-year-olds now, when they're 44, are they still going to be able to be in the mix like Tiger Woods was late in his career? And that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think that what you'll get is you're going to get some outliers for sure that might be able to. I'm sorry, but 44. I don't think that's ever going to happen as far as being at the highest level. But maybe you're starting to get, the oldest player at the Valorant World Championships being 28. Maybe in a couple of years that's 31 or something like that. Someone who is able to hang on a little bit more, right? Yeah. It will be interesting to see what some of the science plays out. Right?
So what would the drop off be?
What would the drop off be?
Would it be reaction time?
I would think it would be reaction time, just like processing speed.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe they can those synapses just fire a little bit faster when you're younger.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm not an expert. I would love to read a whole book about it, and I would love to find out more information. And I'm sure someone is doing the studies right now that's finding out what that is, because not only is that an interesting topic, I mean, how much would all these esports orgs love to have that science so they could they know how they should be planning, who they're paying, and you know what I mean?
The development state, track.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like if hockey teams knew in 1980 that the prime of a hockey player was this, then they would know, okay, we shouldn't be paying this contract right now, right? Because this is where they're actually traditionally going to drop off, right? So they seem to know that now a little bit more, but maybe back in the day when they didn't have that data, then they maybe made some decisions that weren't the best.
For sure. Well, maybe a bit of a sidebar question here. I've been staring at it for a while. Just to conclude our show, what instrument did you play, and what kind of band were you in?
I did the normal progression that I've seen a lot of people do, where I went from punk rock, hardcore, like pretty heavy music, and then my next band was a country band. So,
cool.
When I was in the heavier bands, I was guitar and sing. And then when I was in the country band, I actually learned how to play, once again, hey, Travis, you have a role, figure this out. I played pedal steel. So, that like whiny thing in the back of country music.
Love that sound.
Yeah, I played that. So I learned how to play that. That was an interesting instrument. I remember specifically a situation where the difference between my punk rock band and country band was not a long period of time. So sometimes we'd be on the same shows as like punk rock bands.
Okay.
And I remember specifically playing at a skate park and all these punk rock bands playing. And then I bring out my pedal steel and people are just like, what is that? What are you playing?
This guy lost.
Yeah.
Any great names for those bands? Do you remember the names?
I had one of them was Twice Shy was the name of the band.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then the other one was just the guy's name that was the lead singer.
That's cool.
So that guy, ego.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Bouch, we really appreciate you taking the time to come here and sit down with us, and it's been an awesome interview. Obviously, for me, not having a ton of gaming experience and working with you, it's super cool to learn more about this. I feel like we could do an episode 2 someday. So, it's been a pleasure, and thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Travis.
This was an awesome conversation.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
To help support the community, please visit our website at usports.community and follow us at usportscommunity on all social media.
You can also follow and rate our podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Audible. Subscribe and like our video feed on YouTube.
Links for all our platforms can be found in the show notes.
Best way to help grow the usports community is to comment on and share our content with your fellow parents and athletes.
This episode was produced by Nick Hussey of Hussey Multimedia, and hydration was provided by Earthwater.
The youth sports community is proudly presented by Nuance Hockey and Ma Golf.
Nuance Hockey provides detail-driven on- and off-ice development in the Edmonton area. For more information, please visit our website at nuance.hockey and follow us on social media.
Ma Golf provides elite coaching for golfers of all skill levels at the Millwoods Golf Club in Edmonton. Our apparel is provided by Burton Barley, prairie-inspired, golf-focused. To receive 15% off your next order, please visit burtonbarley.com and use our promo code YSC15.
We look forward to you joining the community next time.